Warning: this podcast features adult subject matter, adult language, and things not meant for children to hear. Viewer discretion is advised. You've been warned. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the next episode of I'm No Joe, the show where every armchair quarterback can feel like an Eddie Bravo. As we tend to do around this place, we've got a couple of gentlemen here with us and a couple gentlemen that may show up a little bit later to have a little discussion, talk some shit, and give our predictions and breakdowns for this weekend's upcoming UFC 235 title showdown here. So, first off, let's go around. Thank you again, gentlemen, for coming. The young gun, who you might not recognize because he doesn't have a car behind him, the up-and-coming stunner, RJ, how you doing, brother?
Fuck you. Doing good tonight, man. You know, ready to get this shit going. Gonna be here for a while, so let's fucking get to it.
Hell yes. And then, as per the usual, as the kids say, on the other side of the round table here, my brother from another mother, my shit-talking homeboy, TJ, how are you this evening, sir?
As the kids say, apparently I'm pretty fucking excellent, if that's the case, as the kids say. Doing fucking excellent. I'm ready to talk some shit and break down some things that I think's going to happen, some things that might not happen.
Absolutely. We have definitely got a very full plate in front of us this evening. So let's dig right down into it here. The first thing we're going to do is our normal intro, if you will. We are going to start by talking about some news and recent events. So the first thing I want to talk about just real quick, because it definitely deserves mentioning, Stefan Struve, after his victory last weekend, has announced that he is retired. Kind of. He laid his gloves down in the octagon, said that he has had a hell of a ride and that he is going out on a win and he is going to step away and retire, and then went on a couple of press junkets throughout the course of this week in his follow-up to the win, obviously, and has mentioned that, yes, he is retiring. No, it's not because of his heart condition, but he also isn't ruling out coming back because he saw GSP leave and then come back twice now. So he retired, but with an asterisk that he still retains the ability to come back. So props for going out on a win. The man has definitely earned his ability to retire. He has been in some serious fucking wars, but at the same time, is this really retirement for him? Only time is really going to tell. So we're just going to have to keep watching, question mark? But with that out of the way, the next thing that I want to talk about this week, during the course of this week, we have seen the reemergence of the 185-pound men's champion Robert Whittaker post-surgery. He is starting to heal up, but definitely still very sore from what he was saying. In the reemergence of the champion himself here, clearly still the champion, confirmed that it was Henry's belt that Kelvin, was parading around with on his shoulder. But in light of that situation and them confirming that they are not going to, in fact, strip Robert Whittaker of the belt, what they did announce this week is that Israel Adesanya and Kelvin Gastelum are going to fight for the interim 185-pound men's belt, the winner to then subsequently unify the belt with Robert Whittaker later in the year. So that gives him more time to get completely healed, back into camp, and then back ready to full fighting status. And in the meanwhile, takes care of the bottlenecking that we seem to have at the top of the 185 division, with Israel and Kelvin just literally trying to edge each other out by the slightest here, according to Dana's point of view at least. So huzzah for that. That is going to be a spec-fucking-tacular fight. Mark my words, that's one no one is going to want to miss. Whew. And then, in light of interim belt conversations, another interesting thing happened during the course of this last week since we recorded the last episode. It has been announced that coming up this summer, Dustin Poirier is going to fight the moving up Max Holloway at 155 pounds for the interim 155-pound belt, with the winner to subsequently, hopefully, be the next person to fight Khabib when he returns in the fall to unify the belts. So it apparently is interim season. And quick little aside, speaking of interim season, one thing that anyone who followed social media today would know is that the interim clown himself, Colby fucking Covington, showed up at the UFC 235 open workouts during Kamaru Usman's open workout with his stupid fucking hat, his stupid fucking sunglasses, that ridiculous interim championship belt that he said made Donald Trump so happy, and a little kitty megaphone so he could talk shit through his constantly tooth-grinding, coked-out jaws at Kamaru Usman while he was working out. So that clown is back into the news whether we like it or not right now. But moving on from one clown to another.
I need to interject for just a moment.
Yeah, go right ahead.
In regards to this happening, anybody who did watch today's release from the UFC, the lead-ups for the fights, old T-Wood said if he takes out Usman, he wants Covington next so he can shut that motherfucker up. And you know what? Not a big fan of T-Wood, but I like that call out, and I would love to see that happen. All right, move along.
No, I completely agree, and that was one of the parts that it was interesting about this week is that, like you mentioned, Woodley and his supportive girlfriend, Ben Askren, did a bunch of press junkets in a nice leafy entourage atmosphere with a nice table splayed out and bottles of water, like a fairly nice romantic picnic would be for the two of them. And one of the things that he did discuss is that when he's done with Usman, because he doesn't believe that Usman has what it takes to beat him anywhere, that he would like to, and that he feels the people would like him to, go after Colby next to finally shut him up, even though we now know that Colby has had not one but two chances to fight Tyron Woodley in a row here and has turned down both opportunities, but still keeps blaming Dana White for not giving him the chance. Fuck Colby. Moving on.
That ass little bitch.
Right? So moving on from that clown to another clownish situation here. UFC Hall of Famer and MMA pioneer and legend, Matt Hughes, has had a hell of a year from his car accident with the train that nearly took him completely out to now what we know now is several incidents of trouble at home, we'll call it, between not only him and his significant other, but his brother and his brother's children. And in light of the series of incidents that have happened since the incident with his accident, apparently he has very much had a rough time getting back to the swing of what he used to normally be able to do, and has caused some issues for him both personally and relationship-wise. And it was announced this week that he has had a restraining order put on him from his wife, his brother, and his brother's oldest son for various alleged assaults. He also announced that he is filing for divorce against said wife, that he maintains his innocence, but acknowledges that ever since the accident, things have mentally been very difficult for him, and he understands the urge for some folks in his life to pull away from him. So it's a weird situation, and it's really hard to see someone who most of us, essentially grew up watching do what we love to see done. And then you see the out of the octagon situations like this because his name is still weight carrying when it gets brought up. And then you see shit like this happen, and it sucks, but it's, as much as it sucks, it's reality. It's part of the world. Just because he was on TV doesn't make him superhuman, and it doesn't make him invulnerable to the same problems that anyone else in life has the potential to face. And it sucks. And I don't bring this up to be a Debbie Downer or to talk shit about Matt Hughes, because he is one of the ones that personally got me really into the sport. But I bring it up because it's a subject that has to be breached. You can't hide shit like this under the rug. There's been a lot of instances similar to this in sports being revealed in the last year or two. I'm not happy that it's destroying people's lives, but I am happy that it's a thing that we are progressed enough as a society that we can openly talk about, and it needs to be openly talked about. That's why I wanted to bring it up. So from that ridiculous bit of shit, I want to move on to an even more ridiculous bit of shit, but on a lighter note here. During this week's press run, Derek the Black Beast Lewis gave a beautiful sound bit, as he does tend to do when they put a microphone in front of him. He said, and I quote, "JDS is probably the weakest opponent I will ever fight. I'm not even looking at his ass. I want that crack at Stipe." There's so much in that one simple, elegant statement that just sends the bells and whistles running. But I just wanted to float that out there. So let that one just float into the back of your noggin for a little bit here. We'll move on from there to another bit of ridiculousness on that same note. Former strawweight champion Joanna Jędrzejczyk did some press this week as well. She says, and I quote, "I'll beat Jessica or I'll beat Rose, whoever has the belt when I come back, but I'm coming back to the strawweight division and I'll have that belt within the year. Mark my words. And then I'm going to take that belt away from Valentina right afterwards."
Ha! That's all I got.
Exactly. This is another one of those things that it needs to be mentioned, because people need to be aware that these things are being said, because it might not get the press that it truly deserves from just, word of mouth. I do want to share things like this with the fans. And I agree. The only thing I can respond to that statement with is a heavy sigh, because
Something just popped in my head about this. Do you think it is at all possible that because she's been hit too many goddamn times in a row now, that she can't think straight anymore? Because her last couple bouts, she's gotten her ass whipped bad.
That is true. And also, as, not an insult, but just a point of contention, Rose beat her not once, but twice. And the second time beat her so bad, she went and got a boob job. I mean, just food for thought is all I'm saying. So, moving on from there to what seems to be the theme of this week's press release junkets of, what the fuck did you say? We have Super Sage Northcutt in the news, giving a little bit of a presser of his own, if you will, during some open workouts for One Championship. He said that when his free agency originally came up, that the UFC didn't want to let him go, that they wanted to keep him, but basically on the same contract status that he was at, which could be argued is even a little generous on their part, given some of his performances, but that their enticement to keep him there was that they offered him a fight with Damian Maia. Granted, this is not the Damian Maia of 10 years ago, but this is still Damian fucking Maia, and for a guy as green as Sage Northcutt, that's still a very, very legitimate challenge, in my opinion. The highlight homeboy himself did not apparently feel the same way and decided instead that he was going to go with One Championship and signed with them partially, according to him, because knees to grounded opponents are legal over there, and he finds that extremely exciting. He said, with pupils way too large for a sober human being to be having an interview talking about kneeing down opponents. But I digress. And on the same topic of One Championship, this brings us to the last little bit of recent event news that I just want to break down real quick. During the same day's news circuit, if you will, it was announced officially, posters and all, that both Eddie Alvarez and Demetrius Johnson will be making their One Championship debuts, as well as MMA superstar Gary Tonin getting back into the octagon to compete again, all coming up this summer on One Championship. So that is definitely one card that I would say absolutely will rival just about anything the UFC has announced thus far. I'm not saying it's going to be the best card in the world, but I'm saying if you look at the names on that card for one, that's as good or better than any UFC Fight Night that they have produced thus far over here. So just things the folks are going to want to keep an eye out for. That out of the way, that will bring us to our first little entree, if you will, of UFC 235. This weekend's pay-per-view event. What a stacked card, ladies and gentlemen. From the top, well, from the middle top to the bottom of this card, we have got lined up some serious action, I am telling you. Now, when I say middle top to the bottom, what I mean that is the early prelims on this card, maybe not the most important to make sure you don't miss. I'm not saying they're going to be bad. I'm just saying the lineup that they've got for the early prelim cards, which has already had one of the 3 fights pulled from it, is not firework-inducing in my opinion. That being said, Shabazian could be interesting if you catch a replay. But what we are going to jump right into is the prelim card, because boy, oh boy, once them prelims get kicking, this card starts snowballing towards an oh shit main event. We'll get there in a minute, though. So, the first thing that I want to talk about, have a little discussion with the folks here. Diego Nightmare Sanchez versus Hey Mickey Gall. Now, this fight, I feel, is a beautiful matchup for a couple of reasons here. First of them being that this is an example of, I won't say egregious, but I will say aggressively going directly at someone that you want to go into the octagon with as a UFC fighter and making it a very public and direct message and combat of words, if you will, does sometimes end up resulting in the match that you specifically were wanting. This is one of those cases because Diego and Mickey have been going back and forth on Instagram and Twitter for months now, and it has been magnifique to watch. It was very well played on Mickey's side, I will say. So this is also a little bit more than just a surface good fight. There's so much depth into this one battle here, so I want to try and just do a quick little breakdown. So for folks who are unaware, Cowboy fucking Cerrone is one of the legitimate OGs from the Jackson Wink camp in Albuquerque. He has literally been there longer than anyone else, asterisk from Diego Sanchez, who has been there as a little bit longer than Cowboy, but also left for a few years and came back, hence the asterisk. But when the incident happened mid last year, I believe it was early last year, where Cowboy Cerrone went on Joe Rogan and then a series of pressers afterwards to let the world know that he was officially leaving Jackson Winks over financial issues and headbutting issues during fight camps and discussions of payments from both sides that were maybe not established the most concrete like they should have been in a relationship, but that aside, they led to the decision for Cowboy to leave Jackson Winks very publicly. And Diego Sanchez immediately, without hesitation, went to social media and started talking shit about Cowboy and denouncing all of the claims that he was making. Flash forward to late last year, early this year, Mickey Gall has been almost primarily training for most of his grappling, for most of his striking, for a lot of his jiu-jitsu with Cowboy Cerrone, Joe Schilling, and I forget the gentleman's name, Thug Jitsu. I forget the gentleman's name now. But world-class training in the Cowboy side, not in the Jackson Wink side. So there's immediately a little bit of a grinding rivalry right there. And Cowboy has basically essentially formed his own gym. He's getting ready to start hosting his own league of amateur fights while he's still performing in the UFC, and has basically been inseparable from Joe Schilling for the last couple of years now, which is also awesome because steel sharpens steel, and those two boys have got each other razor tight right now. So I, completely setting aside my dislike for Diego Sanchez and a lot of his fucking antics versus his fight performances, I think Mickey Gall is not only coming into this more prepared and more level-headed, I think he's coming in on an emotionally level-headed place, whereas you could see in the face-offs, Diego Sanchez is already, Mickey Gall has real estate in Diego Sanchez's head, and I think it's going to work against him. I think that's going to be a detriment to Diego. I think Mickey Gall comes in, he does work. I think it doesn't make it past the second round. What do you guys think?
I'm inclined to say you're right. Not because I don't think Diego can't get in there and whip Mickey Gall's ass. That can very well happen. But because of Diego's mileage as of lately, and yeah, he won his last fight, but he was on a terrible losing fight where he wasn't just getting beat. He was getting beaten senseless.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. I love what that man has done over the course of his career. He has always been in there to go to war. It doesn't matter who the fuck it's with.
Absolutely.
He'll go in there and die. He doesn't care. That is something I can say my hat is off to the man for. He goes in there like a warrior, leaves like a warrior. Whether it's on top or fucking on a stretcher, he doesn't give a shit. He's going in there to fight. In fact, you know what? This is the one thing I will say outside of what's happened recently. He does have a very good streak in him as well. And I think some people forget this. I think, was it about a year or two ago? There's a kid with Down syndrome that was coming in and training in the gym with him. And he went and had a fight with him and let the kid armbar him. You know what? My hat's off to him, because you know what? That's kind of like the way I look at that. It's kind of like those meet your hero, beat your hero type situations.
Right.
That was one of those situations. So my hat's off to him for stuff like that. But his high mileage and how much he's gotten beaten recently, yeah, he came off a pretty impressive victory on his last fight too. It wasn't like it was pretty lopsided. He definitely won it definitively, but he's towards that tail end of his career where, to be honest, he could very well get knocked out inside it too. However, if he can avoid it and he turns it into a brawl like he likes, I don't think old Mickey Gall is going to hang too long if it gets into a brawl. Because Mickey Gall right now is probably a little more technical in his career than what fucking Sanchez has ever been. Yeah. Sanchez has never been a super technical guy. He's got technique, but it's not technical.
Right.
So you're probably right. Mickey's going to take this one. But if it goes into a brawl type setting, I think Diego's going to get him just because that's his bread and butter.
Definitely a possibility.
I mean, as you just said, that Diego Sanchez is coming off a really good victory. I mean, so is Mickey Gall, though. He had a first-round submission on his debut fight. And first-round submission coming in debut, I mean, regardless if it's a really good wrestling fighter he's going against, I mean, regardless, I mean, you gotta give your hats off to that. I mean, that's going to be good if he does get him to the ground. I think he might have a problem with Mickey Gall being on the ground with him. So if it does go to the ground, I mean, I'm going to have to say Mickey Gall. But standing up, that's going to be kind of a toss-up. I mean, but like TJ said, he does have some road mileage on him, so that chin could be a little bit strained. So this is going to be a good one to see.
Absolutely, and also if you think about it, it hasn't been every fight so far, but the most prominent so far of Mickey Gall's career since coming into the UFC. He called for CM Punk. He literally begged Dana for it, got it, and then put fucking work in. Granted, it was CM Punk, so we've seen how easy that can be done. But he called his fucking shot and then sent it to the bleachers. And then called out Super Sage's highlighted ass and got work put to him as well. Got Super Sage. So His record for calling his shots like he did with Diego here is pretty fucking good.
Well, I can't even count CM Punk on that. That does not even fucking count. I will gladly count the Sage Northcutt.
Right,
CM
right.
Punk never should have been even fucking thought of about putting in the cage. He never had any sort of collegiate wrestling background that was worth a shit. At least when they put Brock in back in the day, he had the stats.
He had accreditation.
So that he had credibility. CM Punk, you get thrown through tables in a high-flying fashion, and I give you credit. You do that phenomenally.
Right.
You're a fantastic performer. But this ain't a performance art. This is fucking real.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that's the only one I have to disagree with you on. I can't call that as calling a shot and knocking it out of the park. Everybody wanted their piece of CM Punk because it was CM Punk and they knew it was this.
Right. Yeah, no, I'll concede an asterisk there, but I'm just saying an example of,
as long as you concede an asterisk, we're good.
Absolutely. I'm using that as more of a point as the line that he has formed and then walked. I will absolutely concede that CM Punk was not much of a fucking stud.
I'm just saying, with that asterisk, you kind of got to cut that line a little short.
It's the one or the two and then the hopscotch. So Okay, so moving on from what's going to be a very interesting opening fight for the prelims here, we move on to our next round. It is Cody Stamann versus Alejandro Perez. Now, Cody Stamann is a tough little motherfucker. He is one of the few people so far in the UFC who have beaten another up-and-coming prospect that I am personally a big fan of, Duquesnoy. That gentleman has got a lot of potential behind him, and Cody Stamann made him look pretty fucking bad. He definitely has a lot of potential behind him as well. But if you look to the other side of the octagon across from him here, Perez is one hell of a wrestler for a little 135 guy. And I say that respectfully, but he is not a large 135 guy. He's very lean. He's very compact versus Stamann, who is what we sometimes refer to as an ice cream cone shaped gentleman. He has skinnier legs, but a wide set of fucking shoulders on his V-shaped fucking form. It's going to be very interesting because with his ice cream cone shape, he also has phenomenal fucking wrestling, but he's got great fucking striking, which makes him dangerous as shit. So it comes down to, can Perez get his wrestling around the striking of Stamann, and can it show to be better than Stamann's wrestling if it gets to that point? I like Cody Stamann a lot, and I think that this kid has a bright fucking future. He's smart. He's well-versed on a microphone. He's eloquent. He can speak. But I think in this situation, as much as I like this kid, I think that Perez is just a little bit more well-rounded on top of being the better wrestler, and I think that he's going to be able to figure Cody Stamann out. I don't think it's going to be easy, and I think it's going to be late in the third if it gets stopped, but I see this one going to the judges, but being in Perez's favor.
You might be right. And I say might be because, first and foremost, he does got to get through the striking. He's more well-rounded, but he's not as good of a striker as Stamann is currently. And I say currently because if you watch his last couple fights, he's improved leaps and bounds in the striking category. However, he's not to that same level. But this is one of those matches where, look, this is something that you see over and over again in the UFC. The person with the more dominant wrestling tends to win these types of bouts over and over and over again. It's kind of like watching a wrestler and a jiu-jitsu guy. That's what they're known for. The wrestlers generally can nullify the jiu-jitsu most of the time as well. They can nullify striking by having great takedowns, ground and pound. Right there, that's part of Perez's bread and butter. His ground and pound game is good.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, he doesn't just bitch ride like fucking Khabib. He actually goes in there and does work, which that's fantastic. However, he's got to get through the striking. Now, will he be able to nullify? I don't know. So, yeah, I think Perez can win. However, if Stamann can, the big thing, he needs to not throw kicks in this fight, knowing that the wrestling is that much better. He needs to work the jab, keep the distance, mix it up with some body shots in there just so it keeps him guessing. Maybe throw 1 or 2 kicks, but don't go to the fucking well on the kicks, because once he picks that up, it's going to be a takedown and you're fucked.
I agree. Definitely needs his on point.
I think Stamen can take this, but he needs to stay on the outside. And we're constantly saying this between all of us. Use the fucking jab. People in MMA forget that even though this is not boxing, the jab is one of the most effective fucking punches you can throw at all fucking times. Why? Because it gauges distance and you're touching them. If you're touching them, that throws them off their game just a little bit. You don't have to hit them hard. Don't get me wrong. There might be that chance that you fucking knock somebody out with a jab. It's happened before. I've seen it on more than one occasion. But it'll keep that distance and keep him guessing a little bit, because he doesn't know if you're sitting there jab, 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 cross, whatever the case is. Those things, it lays everything out in front of you, gives him something to work off. So if he can manage that and keep his striking game up where it has been, he'll be all right. However, he is coming off of a loss, so I want to see how he does recovering from that. So I'm not going to really call a winner on this one. I think it's going to end up being a toss-up. And I think it's going to go to decision. I don't think that they're going to have a finish.
I agree. I think it's more inclined to go to decision than it is going to be a finish, but time will tell.
I mean, it's not something I can really go with, but y'all keep saying decision, and I'm gonna agree 3rd round or a decision, because Perez, I mean, technically he's on a tear, considering that he's only gone to decision a few times. One fight, I think it was one fight, maybe 2, was a decision draw. So if it does go to the decision, I'd have to go with Perez, because he is a bit more well-rounded. Does have some more mileage on him, but then again, that mileage comes with experience and knowing what to do, when to do it, and considering that who he's fighting is rather green, at least for the UFC. Right. Yeah, I'd have to go with Perez, 3rd round into a decision.
Excellent. I think we've got a lot of similar points on this fight here, and that makes me happy, because that means we all see very similar on certain situations here, which may not be the case once we get further into this card. But for the time being, we've got a nice peaceful scenario rolling along here. So we'll jump right on to the next fight that I have been giggling and squeeing about since it was originally announced. We talked about this several times in short passing since it was announced, but I believe we actually even mentioned it last week on the recent news and upcoming events. Misha Cirkunov versus originally slated OSP, pulled out, replaced by the man that we've all talked about several times and definitely have our prospect eyeballs glued to firmly, Johnny Walker. Holy shit. You want to talk about going from having yourself a good introduction to, all right, here's your fucking test. This man has been ushered up the line very quickly from newcomer to the UFC to let's see what you can do against real fucking talent. Misha Cirkunov is one of the least people in the world that should ever be overlooked. He has got great ability in all aspects of MMA, and he has got one of the hardest fucking punches that you will see on a highlight reel. That being said, Johnny Walker is green to the UFC, but not green to fighting by any stretch of the imagination. The young man has trained jiu-jitsu. He has trained striking. He has trained wrestling, and he has done so around the world in his young life. He might not have a lot of UFC experience, but the gentleman does have some overall MMA experience from different facets and some fights on his record before he got here. Holy shit. Now, I am a huge fan of what could be the big star in Johnny Walker, but at the same time, Misha Circumkopf might be the worst dark horse you could ever have to stare across a fucking octagon at. So the question comes down to, is this going to be a case of the hype train of Johnny Walker giving him the momentum to take this battle, or is this one of the arguably best grapplers and strikers in MMA getting thrown a young buck so that he can start his springboard here? Both are legitimately plausible depending on your point of view. I am in the camp for this situation, not as a new shift in perspective per se, but for this situation, I've got to give it to Misha Circumkopf. I think Johnny Walker has a bright fucking future ahead of him. I think he's got a very, very good skill set under his belt. But I feel that this just might be a little bit too much of a stake for him to be able to handle at this young level in his UFC career. Because, like I mentioned, he does have a good amount of fights. He does have a decent amount of experience in the MMA world. But as we say time and time again, if you're in the UFC, you're at a level above most you will ever see anywhere else. And I feel like as much hype, and it's deservedly so in most cases, that Johnny Walker has behind him, I feel that this is just a little bit too high of a level for him to make that step just this fresh in his UFC career. I'm giving this one to Misha Circumkopf.
I'm going to go ahead and say it. You took the words out of my mouth there. Johnny Walker's hype train is real. But he's going from the well to the bright lights on the surface. And I think that I just don't think that he's going to have what it takes to wreck a crafty veteran. Because, Circumkopf's already a veteran of the sport.
Absolutely.
And when you're looking at fucking Johnny Walker, yeah, what he's gone through from going to the fucking Dana White's fucking Thursday night fight series to fucking bump up after a huge jump into the fucking limelight here, I think this might be where that train derails. Don't get me wrong, he's got a number by his name now, but I just don't foresee him being the person that's going to knock this out of the park. I think he's still a little too green around the ears here, or excuse me, not green around the ears, a little wet behind the ears to fucking pull this out. He's got talent, but it needs to be refined. So if there's not another way I see that going. It's just Circumkopf's going to end up taking this one, and I don't know if we'll see a finish. However, if that hype train does hit, though, and he stays on it, my fucking hat's off to him. But I don't see it happening right now. He does have definitely a fantastic future ahead of him. He's just got to dry off the wetness behind those ears a little bit, get a little more training, and he'll be fantastic. But I don't think Saturday night is going to be his night, unfortunately. I think this is the day that he goes home with his tail between his legs.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. I'd love to see Johnny Walker pull something out of his ass. I'd love to see it, but with somebody with the amount of years and experience in fighting, I just can't say it. I just can't see it happening. I mean, very well he could. Every dog gets their day, as they say. So, I mean, maybe. But still, as I said last week, I'd love to see him get into deep water. I'd love to see it, to see how he performs, how he acts. But I mean, I just can't put that W going to Walker. Can't do it.
You know, there's one other thing I did want to add to that, because you just made me think of something. It's not Johnny Walker doesn't have the fights, because he does have the fights. He's like 16 and I want to say like 3 or something as a pro. However, his level of pro fighting that he was doing before is not to the level that he's been thrown into. Even his debut in the UFC, that was a whole different level. And yes, he did a fantastic job that night. But it's a whole different level when you look at what Circumkopf has been thrown into as far as his pro fights are concerned. And they have about equal amount of fights, if I'm not mistaken.
Pro fights, yeah.
Circumkopf's fucking fight list is a lot fucking deeper water than what fucking old Johnny Walker's looking like right now. So,
yes, sir. I agree completely.
I think it just has to do with the level of competition step up for him, and I don't think he's going to get it done.
I agree. And that's not to say that he won't be able to beat the likes of a Circumkopf in the future. I think we just all agree that at this point, he's just not quite there just yet. So with that bout under the belt here, that brings us to the main event of the prelims, if you will. Now this, I'm not sure it would be appropriate to say that it's a fight that the fans necessarily wanted, but it's a fight that has most hardcore fans like us intrigued to see how it's going to play out. We have got Jeremy Little Heathen Stevens versus Zabit, I'm going to get this, Magomed Sharipov. Holy shit. They all tell you, even he and his trainers say, just call him Zabit. So we'll go with that from here on out. But in Rogan fashion, as I do tend to emulate from time to time, I did want to get his full name out there. So respect to the gentleman. Now, this fucking fight. This is, for lack of a better term, one of the most interesting style matchups in the division right now with everything going on. Jeremy Stevens, I won't say that he's not a grappler or a wrestler. He does have wrestling and grappling ability, but he is primarily referred to as a striker or a knockout artist. That being said, it's not, completely opposed by him to go for a submission if one is there. It's been seen before. It's not outside of his realm of possibilities to stuff a hard takedown or to take someone else down when the moment is there. But if you look overall at his style and his tendencies, he's primarily a striker. Whereas you look across the octagon to his opponent here, Zabit is another of the upcoming wave of Dagestani death grapplers, for lack of a better fucking choice here. These guys are the eat shit, sleep, and breathe wrestling till you die variety. The Khabibs, the Saeed Nurmagomedovs, the Zabits. There are about a half a dozen of these gentlemen, or at least before a certain incident happened, there was about a half a dozen of these gentlemen, all from Dagestan, competing in the UFC and putting on a technically very impressive performance in all of their examples of the grappling that they are ingraining into these gentlemen in that area right now. That being said, Zabit has taken it one step further and taken that fundamentally substantial grappling and wrestling background that they instill and added a seriously threatening both striking and jiu-jitsu component to it. He is also a very tall and long man for that division. He's 6'5", I believe. That is a lot of man to handle when he's got good striking, he's got great jiu-jitsu, and he is a fucking Dagestani death wrestler. That's a problem for the vast majority of that division once this man gets a little more experience under his belt, because he is, though he may have a little over a dozen professional fights, he is fairly green to the UFC still, like a couple of our other people we talked about here. That being said, Jeremy Stevens has come out in this last week and talked about after his loss to Jose Aldo, he literally got suicidal. It almost cost him his life. It almost cost him his family. It almost cost him his career. It almost cost him literally everything. and was very candid about this. And I can honestly appreciate that, because it goes back to what we talked about earlier with Matt Hughes. It's not that I ever wish bad upon someone. It's just that these are aspects of the fight world that don't get openly talked about enough, in my opinion, and they should be. So for that side of it, I absolutely 100% take my fucking hat directly off to Jeremy Stephens for being open and honest about what happened. And this is the type of thing that needs to be discussed. My problem comes in is that in the very next breath, he talks about when he and Zabit had their first face-off, he sees nothing but fear in Zabit's eyes, and that's going to be a problem for him when he gets in the octagon. Don't go from making me root for you to making me want to see you get fucking throat punched on television in a 4-minute span. That's a bad move, man. And I mean that as a human, not as a fight fan. Like, you went from being genuine and honest about a real situation to almost turn around and mocking it for fight fuel in the next breath. That aside, I will give credit where credit is due. Stephens is a hell of a striker. But aside from me wanting to see him get throat punched because of the fucking stupidity that diarrheaed out of his face, I think, just from an overall point of view here, that Zabit, green as he may be in the UFC, has a more well-rounded toolbox than Stephens does. And I think it's going to come into play here. And I think this is going to be Zabit's chance, with more eyes on him, to really display more of his skills and ability. And I think he just flat out outclasses Stephens here. I think this one might be a clinic on the Zabit side here. I think he's going to put on a show.
You know, I'm inclined to agree with you. However, everybody who is on this Dagestani train, I want everyone to be dis-fucking-railed. Like, just fucking derail yourselves, because you know what? We need, as a fight community, the people who watch this, the fighters, everyone, they need to see that it can be derailed in a dominant fashion. What I would like to see, outside of Stephens not talking so stupidly, is I would like to see him go in there and KO him. I really would, because I'm sick of hearing about the Dagestani fucking wrestle fucks. Because I'm sick of watching people get wrestle fucked. If you're going to take somebody down, don't just lay on them. Do some fucking ground and pound. Yes, Zabit is very well-rounded, but his striking game is nowhere near what Jeremy Stephens is. That's fucking... You're comparing a fucking piece of goddamn skirt steak to a goddamn filet mignon here when it comes to the striking. It's two different things. And I'm not calling Jeremy Stephens a world-class striker. He's not. But Zabit is nowhere near Jeremy Stephens. He's got a long fucking way to go. Do I think Jeremy Stephens is going to win this fight? No. Because what's going to happen, just like the rest of these Dagestani fucking wrestle fucking guys coming out of Dagestan, and my hat's off to them for this, because they are fan-fucking-tastic at it, and it irks the ever-living fuck out of me, because it's MMA. If I wanted to watch wrestling, I would watch wrestling. Don't get me wrong. I understand wrestling is a part of MMA. A part. Not the whole goddamn thing. I don't want to watch you wrestle fuck somebody's asshole dry for 3 hours. I'm just saying, please, Zabit, go in there. If you're going to fucking wrestle fuck him, at least do damage. Don't win by decision, by takedown and riding. Please get a submission victory. Fucking, better yet, ground and pound the ever-living piss out of him so he rethinks his fucking choice of words next time. And Jeremy Stephens, if you win this fight, please come clean about everything that was going on with everybody. Not just because you won, but what followed your last fight. You were on the right track, doing the right thing for a lot of people. And it's not just as fight fans. There's a lot of people out there with those same types of issues. When they see somebody in the limelight having those same problems, it's somebody they can relate to. realize, hey, if they can manage this, so can I. So do the right fucking thing. Like you said, don't go from thoughts of suicide to I see fear in somebody's eyes and it's going to be a bad night for him, all in the fucking same sentence. That's just a bad look. Because you know what? It makes what you said being sincere at the beginning not look so goddamn sincere. It looks like you were using it as a play up for your fucking fight. And that's not okay. Because there are people out there with legitimate problems. If you did have a legitimate problem like that, you would know better than to fucking throw those things together. And I get it. You're trying to make money. You're trying to sell a fight. But that's not the way to fucking do it. You know what? If you want to sell the fight, pull the old Conor McGregor card here. Talk bad about his family. Talk bad about what kind of snake in the grass those Dagestani stinky sheep fuckers are. Whatever it was he was saying before. Do those kinds of things. That'll sell the fucking fight. Because there's a lot of people out there who are not a fan of their style of fighting. And guess what? I'm one of them. I'll say it clean out. Do I respect what they're doing? Yes, I do. Because it is fantastic work. And it works like a fucking charm. Do I enjoy watching their fights? No. No, I do not. Because you know what? If I want to watch a Sambo match or a fucking wrestling contest, I'll go watch those. I'm not going to fucking pay to watch UFC fuckers wrestle each other. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here for mixed martial arts. A little bit of wrestling, a little bit of jiu-jitsu, a little bit of striking, maybe some kickboxing, whatever. Mix it up. Don't just wrestle fuck people, please. But yes, Zabit takes this one because he is by far way more well-rounded. Unless Jeremy Stephens pulls the old KO out of the bag, which, to be honest, I really hope he does. And not for Jeremy Stephens' sake. But because I just want to see the Dagestani wrestle fuck train derailed.
So, being completely honest, hopefully, I'm not the only person that saw this. Hopefully, he takes a look at how can't remember the fighter's name, but how they handled a Dagestani wrestle fucker on the road to ONE FC, and absolutely fucking destroys another Dagestani wrestle fucker. I fucking hope it comes down to that. To where we get another fucking knockout with another fucking Dagestani bitch, fucking jumps to the cage. Oh my god, he's on the ground knocked out. Please let it come to that. Please, Jeremy Stephens. I don't like you as a fighter. I respect you for the fights that you have fought. But dude, fucking just knock this out of the park for me. Please. With that being said, if Stephens can keep this up off the ground, if he can just stuff takedown after takedown after takedown, he could fucking walk away with it. But if he lets one takedown fucking get him, he's fucked. He is fucked. If he can stay off the ground, he's golden. If he stays off the ground, give it to Stephens because his striking is well better than Zabit's. But if he goes to the ground, hook, line, sinker, he's done.
I agree. I agree completely. If it can stay on the feet, more often than not, that fight goes to Jeremy Stephens because his striking is very much above head and shoulders past Zabit's. But we'll see if that full toolbox comes into play and if he can figure the puzzle out, because that's going to be a fight rather, that whether you've been watching all of the prelims or all of the early prelims and the prelims glued to your television the whole time, or you just walked in and that fight starts, that's going to get your attention drawn in to bring you into the main card for UFC 235, the meat and potatoes, if you will, of the night's event. So the first fight, right out of the fucking gate on the main card, fireworks are fucking lined up and there's a blowtorch at the ready. This is going to be a fucking spectacular fight to kick this card off, no matter which way the dominoes fall. What we're talking about here is the return of one Cody No Love Garbrandt versus the one and only Pedro fucking Munoz. Boys and girls, get your fucking eyes ready for this one, because this is not going to be a slow and steady wins the race kind of fight. These are two dudes who are known for coming out of the gate like fucking racehorses and throwing everything but the goddamn kitchen sink at you with every fucking punch from the time the bell starts till somebody goes to sleep. The difference, in my opinion, here, Cody Garbrandt, while he does have a very decent wrestling background, he has got his uncle, the former pro boxer, has been teaching him boxing since he was, I believe, 15. He's got a damn good boxing and a damn good striking game. The thing that you don't see a lot from Cody Garbrandt is one of the things that Pedro Munoz is particularly known for, and that is those fucking kicks from hell. If you've seen any of the behind the scenes or the training footage of Pedro Munoz having people hold the pad for him when he kicks, and he literally fucking sends people flying backwards holding the pad from his fucking kicks, as well as having a beautiful striking ability that can put the best chin on the market to the test. This is one of those scenarios where you almost can't accurately predict how this is going to go down, because there are so many nail-biting potentials that are going to just literally pop off that fucking quick during this fight. I am not going to say I can clearly see the winner here, because this is one of those that you'd be a fool to say that either one can easily win this. For my money, though, I'm putting my bread and butter here on Pedro Munoz. And I know that the popular opinion, as we'll say here, is that Cody Garbrandt has been motivated from the losses from TJ. He's been training extra hard. He's coming back with a passion. That I can see that contention. But if you've been watching Pedro Munoz's training on the other side of this, he's got a Terminator-esque look about him right now. Yeah, he joked a little bit when they got up on the stage for the face-off and whatnot, but if you see that man when he's training, he gets what I believe they refer to as the 1,000-yard stare. He's not looking at you. He's looking directly the fuck through you, and he's going to go directly the fuck through you. And I think that between Pedro's lethal abilities and his fucking laser-like precise focus that he has got right now, I think Cody is overlooking way too much of Pedro's game. I don't think he's per se just looking past him, but I think he's taking this fight too lightly. I think Pedro comes in there. I think it's fucking fireworks all the way through, but I think Pedro takes this one.
All right. Couple things here. One, you're right. A sane man cannot call this fight. To put Driggs in Pedro Munoz's basket right now, I think is a bad idea. The same as Garbrandt's. Don't put Driggs in either basket right here. If you're looking to fucking Vegas bet this, just pick a winner, because that's the only bet you really have. Don't play the odds on this one, because you're not gonna win. This is what I will say, because I think this fight is contingent on one thing and one thing only. And it's not fucking Pedro's kicking game. It's not Cody's striking game. It's all going to come down to, and I will put this on one person in this fight, it's all going to come down to Cody Garbrandt. And this is why. He just lost back-to-back fights in dominant fashion. He got the brakes beat the fuck off of him. Not once, but twice. He also, in the meantime, had a injury that he had to deal with. The other part of this coming in, he has a new baby on board. And you know what? More power to him. The baby can do one of two things. It's either going to motivate the ever-living fuck out of him or take his eyes off of the prize. Now, I'm not going to say the baby has anything to do with this, because it does not, but it can definitely sway the bar a little bit. But why I say this rests in Cody's hands right now, how is he going to come back? Is after getting my ass handed to me in such dominant fashion twice, after I wrecked everybody in the fucking division, including Dominic Cruz, making Dominic Cruz look like he was a fucking undercard fighter. And you lose to TJ Dillashaw, who, this is where MMA math doesn't work, Cruz fucking beats up. But, you know, I think it's all going to come down to where is he at mentally after those two losses. He knows he's not going in there to fight TJ Dillashaw, and he's got a long road ahead of him to fight TJ Dillashaw again if he gets another shot at him. And I say, if, yes, you're ranked number 2, but that doesn't guarantee you a shot. You have to do something dominant here. And is your head in the game now after that? I know you're a fighter. I've seen what you can do, but it all rests on your shoulders. I'm not going to pick a winner here, but I do say that everything comes down to his mental status. Not what he can do, because we all know what he can do. We've seen it firsthand. We've watched him run through. He's the former champ for a reason. It's not that he's a slouch. Pedro Munoz, this is a big step up in competition for him too. And I'll say it right outright. Because you know what? He's never fought somebody who's ran through the entire fucking division at one point. And done it in such a dominant fashion. Danced and showed off. Pulled the little speedy feet there, looking like he's old goddamn Muhammad Ali type fighters in the middle of the octagon. He's never ran across this before. For Pedro to look through him or beyond him right now, I think is a mistake. If he does that, he'll end up losing this fight. But he could look beyond him too, because if Cody's head's not in it, Cody's going to end up fucking losing this fight. So I'm not going to pick a winner on this, but I do say it all hinges right now specifically on the mental status of Cody Garbrandt. Where is his head at? Is it in the fight game? Has he fully recovered from the injury that he suffered post-fight? Has he recovered mentally from those two devastating losses? Not just losses, because look, every fighter eventually loses. That's just how this game works. Somebody bigger, badder comes along. But it's how do you bounce back from those losses? And in this case, it's not just a loss. They're devastating losses. Just fucking completely picked apart, made to look like some scrub they picked off the street. So I think it's all going to depend on Cody's mindset and where he's at. That's my fucking 2 cents. The change is yours, RJ.
I agree.
So I'm going to feed off of what TJ was talking about. I'm not going to pick a winner on this. I can't. Cody Garbrandt has run through the entire division dominantly, just without a fucking doubt. He has great fucking striking. He has good ground game. But then in the same flip, both of them do. Both of them have good striking, good ground game. Not Cody Garbrandt. His name just went right out of my fucking brain. He's won several fights in submissions. Submissions, decisions. I mean, so this is a toss-up. This is a toss-up. I'm not going to put a W on one of them. I'm not going to put an L on the other, because both of them are fucking fantastic fighters. One has run through the entire fucking weight class full fucking force and just kept on fucking going. But I would like to see Cody Garbrandt take a bounce back. I would love to fucking see it. I'd love to see him bounce back and take this W. I'd like to see it, to see him, how motivated he is after everything that's happened over the last year. I'd like to see him take this fight. But that depends on how this is going to be tonight. for that night. So
I agree. I think this fight, maybe more than any other fight on the entire card, is probably, my opinion, the toughest to realistically pick a winner for. That being said, I'm doubling down on my Pedro stamp. I'm calling Pedro here. I don't think Cody is back. I don't think Cody is well-rounded enough, even if he is mentally back, to stop a motivated Pedro who's healthy and with a full camp underneath his belt. That being said, that brings us to, I'm not going to call it the worst fight on the card, but I'll call it the opposite of the fight that we just discussed. Whereas Cody versus Pedro, I feel, is such a great matchup. Potentially, it will be too difficult to call an accurate winner confidently. I think the next one here is kind of a little bit in the other direction. And I'm talking about Tecia Tiny Tornado Torres versus Weili Zhang. Now, while this is, officially speaking, Weili Zhang's UFC debut, she is another one that we're going to continue to talk about on this card, that she's got a world of experience outside of the UFC. She is so far from green, they're not even on the same color spectrum. That being said, this is her first time under the big lights of the UFC, so that may have a part to play in it. But on the other hand, across the octagon from her, you have a battle-beaten, mileage-wearing, on the downhill decline fighter in Tecia Torres. Now, I'm not saying Tecia Torres is a bad fighter. Far from it. She is one tough little girl. That girl has been in some fucking notable wars, and she has done her fair share of damage in them. But that unto itself is the point that I'm making here. She has been in so fucking many battles, and her mileage, it seems like, is really starting to show more and more in her recent fights. She's just not as fast as she was. She doesn't have the snap she used to, and her shots just don't carry the same power that you used to see her be able to put women on their back heel or their ass with a good plant shot. She just doesn't seem to have that anymore. And we've said it before, I don't want to be the guy that says it's time for her to hang him up. But realistically, if you just look at the decline in her fighting ability versus when she first started out, I think that she either needs to change camps and find that fucking second gear and dig down and start fucking getting real again, or she needs to start doing like some of the other fighters have been doing and start realistically considering that it's time to maybe move towards the coaching side of fighting and start to veer away from the actual octagon side of the fight, because it just doesn't seem like she's there anymore. Versus in what's going to be here, a very hungry up-and-comer, an appreciative woman who understands how big of a deal it is for her to be in the UFC now. And she also has that fight experience behind her. She's coming in to make a fucking point. She's not here to just be a shy little, oh, I'm here to fight girl. She has said she is here to make a statement. She doesn't think that it's coincidence that she's in the UFC. And I believe this is going to be a very dominant victory for Weili Zhang. I think Tecia Torres, I'm not saying she's done, but I think she has fallen off, and she either needs to find that next fucking gear and change camps and get after it, or hang it up, because she's not going to get back to a title contention status the way she's fighting, and I think Zhang runs through her.
I would say I'm inclined to believe you, but those big lights change a lot of fighters. A lot. And she's not just going from ONE FC or where the fuck her last fight was, I forget, to the UFC. She's going to the UFC main fucking card, stadium fucking packed. She's never touched waters like these before or had this many screaming fucking people around them. That can change you. Whether it be for the good or for the bad, we'll find out. You're right. Tecia may be declining, and I say may. But also, when you're looking at her last couple fights, look who she was fighting. She got beat up by Andrade. She got beat up by fucking Joanna. As much as I hate to say Joanna's not taking a belt, we all know that. Because she's well past that point of being able to compete with some people that have now surpassed her. The people that Tisha's lost to recently, they're no fucking joke. Those are people who have a fucking really strong pedigree. So I can't take anything away from her saying she's on the decline. She lost to some very fucking heavy competition. Not that she's gotten worse. It's just that those other fighters definitely outclassed her. That's what that was. I think the last win I saw from her was in 2017 against the Karate Hottie. And the Karate Hottie's been on a fucking tear. Right now, you throw those two against each other again, the Karate Hottie will probably fuck her ass up. Because that was back when the Karate Hottie was still kind of getting her legs underneath her. So, I don't think it's that she's on the downslope of her career yet. She's only fucking 13 professional fights, I think, right now. Or something like that. 13, 14. Somewhere in that neighborhood. I just think that she was fighting fighters that were outside of her class. And when I say outside of her class, she was the sixth grader trying to take on the fucking high school senior. And that doesn't work out good for anybody. It doesn't matter who you are. You can fucking throw me in there against fucking CM Punk. I'll probably outclass Punk, and I haven't fought in years. Same kind of concept. It depends on the competition level that you're fighting at. Weili Zhang got a fucking amazing record. Sitting at, I think, 18-0 or 18-1 or something. She's got a fucking phenomenal record. However, here's the catch with this. We have to look at the quality of the opponents she was going from. She's now under the limelight where the best fighters in the world end up coming eventually, most of the time. I say most of the time because that's not always the case, but it's also the biggest show she's ever going to be a part of. So, to be honest, I think Tisha's going to put up a fucking hell of a fight. I don't think she's going to finish because she's not known for finishing people. But I think she can win by decision on this fight. I'm going to go ahead and call the tornado on this one because contrary to people thinking she's in the decline, I think it's just the stature of the people she was fighting.
I could see that as well.
And I'm glad somebody else is in agreement. I'm with Tisha all day. Like TJ said, all the 2018, she was being put against fighters that were way, way above her class. 2017, 2016, she was on a tear like a son of a bitch. All 2017, she had wins. 2018 was the year that she really got put to the test, and she really did not step up. So I have to agree with TJ on this. I say Tisha, but I'm going to call it either – I'm not going to call a decision. I'm going to call a second round into the third round if Tisha does win. I'm going to say second round and a third round. I don't want to see it go to a decision.
I could see that as well. There's definitely a possibility for Tisha to just flat out take it, but I'm inclined to think it, from what I've seen at least, I think this is going to be a Zhang highlight reel. But push that one to the side. This brings us to one of 2019's most anticipated fight discussions here for our lovely little panel. This brings us to a matchup that is probably one of the most headline-grabbing fights that has been announced in a hot minute. We are talking, ladies and gentlemen, about Robbie motherfucking Lawler versus Ben WrestleFunky Askren. This is the first notable trade that has been done between MMA organizations. This was orchestrated by one Demetrius Johnson leaving the UFC to go over to ONE FC, or One Fighting Championship, in exchange for one retired coming out of retirement, Ben Askren, coming to the UFC in his attempt to compete against the best in the world in his division. So when Ben Askren officially was brought onto the UFC roster, he quite literally and almost immediately took to social media and called out the vast majority of the top 15 in the division. Right away, said he wants to fight every single fucking one of them for the most part. With a few exceptions, and one of those exceptions being Robbie fucking Lawler. He didn't say a fucking word about Robbie Lawler. And for some coincidental reason, that's exactly who Dana decided that he was going to match him up with for his debut in the UFC. A coming back from an ACL tear, but now supposedly fully healthy and full camp ready, Robbie Lawler on a mission to get back up to the top of the stack and go back after that belt that was once his. So Askren is one of the most polarizing, is the word that I'm going to use, one of the most polarizing figures in the MMA world today. He and Tyron Woodley have gone back as partners all the way to the University of Missouri in their college days, in their Division I wrestling days. Woodley went more towards boxing into the MMA world, whereas Askren stuck with wrestling to an Olympic level. You don't get that type of recognition and that type of accomplishment on a coincidence. To get there, you have to be a legitimate great in your field. So to that aspect, I tip my hat to Ben Askren. He clearly has a world-class pedigree in wrestling. If you look at his record, he also has several submissions attributed to his wrestling ability. When he gets you down, he gets the chance to grab those fucking limbs or grab your neck, and he does. My hat's off to you on some submission victories as well. But the thing that I think is going to be one of the largest factors in how this fight plays out is Ben Askren's striking prowess. Now, as with most great wrestlers and good grapplers, if he gets you to the ground and pound is going to happen. Where I feel that Ben has a notable lacking ability set is on the feet, on an actual boxing, striking, throw it down in the center, toe-to-toe, punch till you can't fucking punch type of brawling striking that MMA is pretty much known for these days. Now, if you flip the tables over and you look across the octagon from him here, you look at Robbie fucking Lawler. This man has shown on more than one occasion that he can handle some of the best wrestlers in the world, that he can handle some of the best submission artists in the world. But then you talk about that last bracket there that I feel makes such a big difference, and that's that stand-up MMA striking range, that toe-to-toe octagon or toe-to-toe phone booth style, we're meeting here and we're fucking punching type of striking. In that checkbox here, I don't know that there is a better man in that division than Robbie Lawler. There have been better examples. I have no doubt about that. But I mean, as an overall athlete in the MMA world of the UFC's 170-pound division, I think that Robbie Lawler unequivocally is the best straight-up striker in the division. Granted, I understand that that has to come with a certain caveat, because the current champion, Tyron Woodley, beat him by striking. That's a different debate for a different day, because I have a whole, we'll call it a Nick Devine-esque conspiracy theory about how that one unfolded. But we'll get to that later. I feel in this situation, for a couple of reasons, Ben Askren has made it known that he literally plans to just go in and wrestle Robbie to the ground and try for a submission or a ground and pound outage. I think that, one, knowing this is his opponent and Robbie's not a fucking idiot, neither is anyone on his team, they completely anticipated that being his game plan from the moment that this fight was even fucking suggested to him. And I know that Robbie is good enough on his own at decent wrestling defense and grappling defense, but knowing that this is specifically the kind of matchup they were putting him into, he would put that much more work on top of it. Also, if you saw the face-off between the two of them, Ben Askren, being the fucking weirdo that he is, literally tapped the back of Robbie's knee and said, "How's that leg? Been grappling?" Robbie immediately responded, "All day." Ben responded immediately with, "Good, because I'm coming after that leg." You almost knew Ben was going to come in and try and go wrestling, and he was specifically going to go after what he knew was Robbie's recently healed leg. I think that you'd be a fool to give anyone in Robbie's camp the discredit of thinking that they were going to look past that. So I think that Robbie is very well prepared, and I think that he's almost to a certain degree counting on that, because if you watch a lot of Ben Askren's videos, yes, his fucking wrestling prowess is something that you cannot overlook in any stretch of the imagination. But on the other side of that fucking coin, Ben Askren has a very, very, very bad habit of shooting in for a single or a double leg and leaving that chin wide open and out to the side as he reaches off to one side to go for the grab. And Robbie Lawler has a beautiful track record of seeing that chin in just such an occasion and putting a fucking stamp on it and ending your fucking night pretty hard. I am Team Robbie here. I think as accomplished as Ben Askren has been in his career, I think that the combination of coming back from the injury and coming back from what has been potentially a career-altering injury for most fighters, in Robbie's situation here has been motivation and hunger to get back to where he was, to get back to his fucking belt. And he knows that if he can put the stamp on Tyron's fucking wrestling partner for years now, Ben Askren, that's going to put him that much closer to getting a shot back at Tyron. I think Robbie takes it. I think Robbie and his fucking hands of doom are going to make a bad evening for Ben Askren.
Well, I thought this was going to be way more of an argument than it actually turned out being, because you were way kinder in words than I thought you were going to be to old Funky Ben here. However, you're right. I'm going to say this. You're right about this. Robbie Lawler, by far the better striker. Ben Askren himself, "I am not a striker." He said, if you guys, I know you've been watching the lead-ups here. He even said when they put the microchips in the gloves for this one, he said, "Oh, they're going to go, what the fuck is he doing? Only 34 miles an hour?" He knows he is not a stand-up striker. Don't expect him to fucking strike. We know Robbie Lawler can strike, will strike, and will knock people out with one-punch power. We know that. However, Ben, when he made his move to MMA, he knew everybody was going to outstrike him. So he's figured out ways around that. And he's done it in spectacular fucking fashion. And yes, you were spot on about Robbie being able to find the chin all the time. However, he's never stepped anywhere near anyone with a fucking wrestling prowess as good as Ben Askren. They say, "Oh, well, he fought Tyrone." Tyrone's fucking wrestling isn't even close to what Askren's is. Askren fucking makes that dude look like an ass clown. Even though he is.
Yeah, he doesn't need help with that.
He doesn't need help with that, but that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying, look, I'm going to make the worst possible fucking comparison just because I know it's going to get under your skin right now. Another fantastic fucking wrestler. Not that I like him, but he's fantastic. DC. DC is a fucking fantastic wrestler. And he uses that to a great ability. I don't like what he does. I don't like the man as himself, but he makes a great commentator. I'll give him that. But not a fan of it. But I am a fan of the way Ben gets shit done. he is not the Dagestani wrestle fuck type. He will wrestle the shit out of you, but when he gets you down, he's doing fucking work, and he's working hard. And you know what? I don't give a shit how much you train for something like that. If you're not already to that level, you can't put it together in 8 weeks, 12 weeks, a year. Ben Askren has been doing this shit his entire fucking life. And nothing against Robbie Lawler at all. Fantastic fucking fighter. I love Robbie Lawler. But with that blown ACL, saying you're coming back 100%, nobody comes back 100% from an ACL. There is no doubt in my mind, being formally medically trained, I know that to 100% certainty. Yes, you can get very, very, very fucking close nowadays because there are some fantastic sports orthopedic fucking surgeons out there that's what their bread and butter is. But to think that he's trained the takedown defense with that bad fucking knee and put it to the fucking test during training camp, doubtful. Highly fucking suspect. Because you know what? You can train it in camp, but those guys know your knee's fucked up in camp. So they're not going to go in there and just fucking punch the fuck out of it, really ream on it. He's going to get put to a test when it comes to this takedown situation. Because Robbie Lawler can very well win this fight with a knockout. I see that. But I'm going to say that it's going to come down, how does that knee hold up when old Funky Ben gets a hold of him and tweaks him just right? Because you know what? He's good at that. We know that. Olympic level wrestler. He knows how to tweak those body parts. He gets a hold of it, I think that's fucking it's all over. Because he's going to put that knee to the test. I really hope that Robbie does not get his knee injured any further. Because I love Robbie Lawler. He's a fantastic fighter. I want to see him do well. But I don't think he's going to be able to put up with the wrestling prowess. Unless he catches a lucky fucking punch on a way in up for a takedown, that's what and I can't call it a lucky punch because he's not a lucky puncher.
Right.
But it's going to depend whether he can actually catch him on the way in for that takedown. Can. And will he? If he does, yeah, that's the fight. If not, Ben Askren's going to win this fight either via ground and pound or via submission. And it's not going to be Dagestani wrestle fuck type, which that is my favorite thing about Funky Ben Askren. He does not wrestle fuck the shit out of people and just ride them. He actually does work. He looks for a finish. Yes, people might not like that he's a takedown fucking master. That's okay. He's doing work when he's on the ground. He doesn't just sit there idly. That dude, the way wrestlers train is on a whole different fucking level than anybody else when it comes to any martial art. It doesn't matter who you are. Those guys train until their fucking scrotums bleed. It doesn't matter. Those guys know they push some more, they puke, they push some more, they puke, they keep going. Because that's the way wrestlers go. From the time you're in about, junior high, all the way through the collegiate level and beyond. That's how they train. I just don't foresee Robbie being able to hold that off for fucking 3 rounds. I'm going to call this as, because right now I'm sure Vegas odds have it as Robbie Lawler, and they should. But I'm going to call the upset here because I'm fully behind the Funky Ben train here. He's going to go ahead and he's going to take that fucking ACL, tweak it away it shouldn't be tweaked, put him on his ass, and ground and pound his ass out. I'm going to go ahead and say, I'll even call it second round ground and pound, Ben Askren.
I'm just going to say this. Robbie, fucking bring it home for Sentinel. Knock the motherfucker out. I have met you. I have trained with you. I have fucking sparred with you. Bring it home for the Sentinel. Point blank period. I'm done.
Oh, that is awesome. So,
all right, I like being the odd duck in this situation. Y'all be kissing my ass later when that happens.
So what I will say in response here, I very much will say that Old Funky does have one of the greatest wrestling prowesses that has been seen in the MMA world in quite some time. But I will throw an asterisk on that as well, because while he has been one of arguably the most dominant wrestling styled champions, to use a fast tech slang for lack of a better word, he also, if you look at the Funk Man's record, has never in his fucking career, going all the way back to Missouri State Middle School, how far back you want to fucking go, has never in his fucking career stepped across the octagon with a striker the likes of a Robbie Lawler. And the closest you can even fucking get, if you're cherry picking through his fucking resume, is going against one Douglas Lima. I'm a big fucking fan of Douglas Lima, but that's like saying that Forrest Gump is the next Conor McGregor. That's just retarded. Yes, Ben does have a wrestling prowess and a great ability to get that wrestling into a ground and pound position for a finish. But on the other side of that coin, Mr. Funky has never had someone with as dangerous a set of hands as a Robbie fucking Lawler standing across the cage from him either. Because Robbie, while it might not be his bread and butter, Robbie can fucking wrestle. And he showed that against Rory, of all fucking people. So Robbie's got the wrestling chops to hold his own against some of the best. I'm not saying he can out-wrestle Ben by any means, but I'm saying he's got the wrestling chops to be able to stand toe-to-toe with some of the best, and he's got leagues better striking. And I think, at least for my money here, that striking is going to make the difference, and it's going to send Funky Ben into a funky little night-night.
You know, you just did the same thing I may have done a second ago. You just compared Rory to fucking Ben Askren's wrestling. That's a fucking toddler and a fucking 18-year-old fighting. There's no difference in there. That's the fucking same. Don't cherry pick Douglas Lima and then say fucking no. Those two aren't even in the same league. Don't play that bullshit on me. Yes, we know Robbie's a fantastic striker, but he's not going to be able to hold the wrestling off as long as he can't catch. If he doesn't catch Askren, I'm telling you, fucking Robbie's going down, because it's his. It doesn't matter who the fuck you've trained with. You can bring in a Dagestani wrestle fucker, and guess what? You're not going to stop those takedowns. But you know what? We'll agree to disagree on this one. See what happens on Saturday, because it's going to be fun.
That's right, it is. And regardless of how either one of us feel, they're going to be the ones to decide it, but we get to sit back and watch. So, to quote a evil genius, if you will. So we will move along from this spectacular match to another match. Partners, if you will, in both fighting and card lineups, apparently. The supportive girlfriend Ben Askren's other half of the bromance, Tyron Tyquill Woodley, is putting his 170-pound belt on the line against Kamaru 30% of a Nightmare Usman. Now, this, unlike the Ben and Robbie fight, in my opinion, has the potential to be one of the more lackluster battles of the evening. And generally speaking, when you talk about title defenses, you don't usually assume that they're going to be lackluster, with the exception of Tyron Wonderboy 2, you knew wasn't really going to be fireworks. Tyron versus Damian Maia, you knew was going to be jiu-jitsu and takedown based, not really a whole lot of fireworks. But for lack of a better way to compare, Kamaru Usman is very much a Tyron Woodley assimilate. He is not quite a clone, but stylistically, they both have very, very similar paths to how they got to the octagon. They both have wrestling histories, although Tyron is Division I All-American. Kamaru is Division II. There's a debate to be had about the difference in wrestling divisions and the prowess that set fighters up with when they moved on in their careers, but that's not even what I'm referring to here. What makes the biggest factor for me personally in this fight is Tyron Woodley, although it might not be the most exciting method, has a history of being a very methodical and a very thought-out, game plan-oriented fighter. He knows how you're going to come at him for the most part because his team does his fucking homework. Duke Roufus is no fucking slouch. They know what you're going to come at them with for the most part. Granted, there's always the wild factor, but they do their homework and they prepare for all of your tendencies so that he has a game plan to counteract that. And while it might not create the most exciting fight styles, it is undeniably a smart fight style. Now, in looking at that, you go across the octagon to Usman's side. Usman was originally brought in as a wrestling coach on an early season of The Ultimate Fighter, later came back to compete on The Ultimate Fighter as a contestant and won his season. There's a whole nother separate debate to be had about there, but he won his season and has moved on to the UFC to establish himself up the ranks enough to the point where here we are talking about this gentleman fighting for the belt. Not an interim, he's fighting for the belt. He is getting his chance at a world title shot. That being said, Kamaru Usman has an unshakable history of being known as saying that he only fights with 30% of what he's got and that he's a problem for people in his division. What that makes me believe is that his problem is that he's only fighting with 30% of his fucking ability on the highest platform in the world. One, if that's true, you're a fuck. But two, that's dumb as fuck to do in any fight sense. If you're in the fight game and you're known for fighting, you fight or you don't. Ask Mike Jackson what not fighting to your full fucking potential will get you. It's a boot in the ass right out of the fucking organization, because not only do the fans not want to see that, the organization gives zero fucks for that kind of bullshit. So you're in the UFC, you either have to give 100% every time or you have to start looking at your options being Rizin, ONE FC, and Bellator, because you won't get kept if you fuck off. There's a track record of it. That's almost become Usman's moniker at this point, is that he won't give 100%. Granted, he's got wins under his belt. He's got a couple of good highlights under his belt. But going from seeing the fight that he referred to as 30% of his ability, comparing it to the fights that he's had afterwards, they all seem the fucking same. The styles, the ability, the power on some of his shots, it all seems the same. So that means that either one, he was lying to try and sound cocky about the 30%, or two, he really is only fighting at a percentage of his total ability, and he's holding back on purpose, and that's not the kind of shit that the UFC appreciates. And further than that, that's the kind of shit that up against somebody as experienced and as powerful and as well-rounded as a Tyron Woodley, that's the kind of stupid shit that's going to get you put to sleep after you run off at the fucking mouth too much. Because Kamaru Usman has done more than his fair share of shit-talking during this last week or so's press run. Exhaustingly so. But taking personal feelings about both fighters and completely setting them aside, because I give zero fucks about either one of these gentlemen on a personal level, looking at the matchup stylistically and ability-wise, as much as I don't want to do it because I don't like this gentleman, I am putting my chips for this event in the basket of one Tyron Woodley. I think that T. Wood has what it takes to put Usman to sleep, because I think Usman is overlooking Tyron on a level that is just dumb. And I think that it's going to come back to haunt him in the form of one Robbie Lawler-esque pop, 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 good night. And I don't think it's going to come early. I don't think it's going to be a quick thing. I think it's going to be late in the third round. I think he's going to make him feel like this is going to be a long, drawn-out battle. And then, as Tyron is known to do, when you start getting closer to those championship rounds, he puts it in second fucking gear, and then he turns it on. And I don't think Kamaru is prepared for that. I don't think Marty from Nebraska has what it takes to stop a motivated and angry T. Wood. I think Tyquil is giving the nightmare a little sip, and he's going to send him off to Snoozyville before the fourth round starts.
I just want to say I knew you liked Ben Askren a little bit. Calling him old Marty from Nebraska. Well done, sir. My hat's off to you. And I also wanted to ask you one question.
Absolutely.
How bad did that fucking hurt to put your eggs in Tyron's basket?
I mean, I'm not going to say it's the most aggravating call that I've had to make ever, but it hurt my fucking soul a little bit to say.
Okay. That's kind of what I figured. I just wanted to make sure you weren't going to go worrying about cutting yourself after the show tonight. Because
No, I'm not going to Jeremy Stevens it. I'll be
no, you're pretty close to spot on for this. There's a couple of little caveats I do want to add because I'm going to go ahead and say this as well. Me and you are on the same level with Tyron. I don't care for him at all. He's a good fighter. He's very methodical in his game plan. There's one thing that I think you did miss in there just a little bit, and it's not to say that you missed it. You just chose not to say it. He's a fantastic counterpuncher. And Usman, from all the shit talking saying he's doing, he says he's going to go in there and take the fight to Woodley. That's a bad idea because he's a very good fucking counterpuncher. We've seen it time in and time out. He ends up winning a lot of fights because of his counterpunching ability. And I think that's something that Usman, who's too busy fucking jacking at the jaw and only giving 30% of his fucking worth out there, it's going to bite him in the ass. In fact, that whole 30% thing, goddamn, that shit pisses me off something fierce. Dude, you're on the biggest stage to make possibly the biggest money a Nigerian boy has ever made in his entire fucking life. I want to, if you ever run across this video, which chances probably not going to happen, but if it does, hey, I'm just saying.
Stranger things have happened.
Don't lie about giving 30%. We know you're giving it all you have. And all you have really isn't that much. That's just why you're saying 30%. Don't fucking lie to us. We're not stupid. On that note, I'm going to go ahead and say you're exactly right here. I think it'll probably, actually, you know what? I'm going to give Usman one extra round. I'm going to say it's going to go into the fourth. Because I think that he's going to drop that second gear. Tyron's going to drop that second gear in about the middle of the third round. And Usman's not going to see it coming. He'll be able to weather the last 2.5 minutes of the round there. But when it comes to the fourth, he's not going to be able to keep up with that fucking pace because Tyron's, I'll give him this. When it comes to when he gets into championship rounds, he fucking turns it up. That's something I will tip my hat to him. He does train for the long fight. He's been there multiple times. We all know that. I just don't think Usman's ready. And if he goes in there with 30%, he's not going to fucking win the fight. You better give 110%. And then if you give 30% and you lose, I want to hear you go, you know what, that was my 100%. I'm a lying cocksucker. How the fuck did I ever get this far in life by lying to myself? Because that's all you're doing. You're not lying to anybody else. You're lying to your fucking self. And this is another thing that, as much as it's going to hurt to say, I want to tip my hat to old T Wood, the chosen one. This hurts really, really bad. All of the lead up to this fight, the only one who is running their fucking mouth here, Usman, constantly running that shit. What does Tyron do? He's taking the high road on this one, and I like this a lot. It almost tipped me in favor saying I kind of like him a little bit, but then I slapped myself and said, no, that's a really bad idea. You're a great fighter. You've been a great champion, and I love that. But you definitely get a tip of my hat for, you know what, just sitting back and watching that dumb cunt run his fucking mouth. Because that's all he's doing. He's jacking at the jaw. People who do that generally not ready for what's in front of them.
Yep.
And he, to be honest, I see him as a shooting star. He's going to flare out real fucking quick here. So this one's going to T Wood, fourth round KO.
I agree. I'm not going to say there's nothing I like about Kamaru Usman. That'd be a lie. That'd be a flat out lie. I'm not gonna sit here and act like he's garbage. He doesn't deserve the opportunity that he's getting here because the man went from just a wrestling coach to winning the Ultimate Fighter to he's getting a fucking title shot this weekend. That is not a coincidence. You don't get into the fucking title shot by talking shit or being lucky. You have to earn it there. Granted, some competitors earn it a little more ruggedly than others, but you still have to earn it. So I will say this, being in a position to potentially win the world title is an accomplishment. And I tip my hat to you for getting yourself there, odd of a journey as it may have been. That being said, as much as this hurts to say, Tyron Woodley compared directly 1-to-1 to Kamaru Usman, I feel is better in every single category. I think every box that you could compare the two of them with gets checked for Tyquil every fucking time. I acknowledge that Kamaru has definitely got himself here, but I think that he had a very fortuitous road to his title shots. And the opponents, whether it was coincidence or whether it was deliberately done, the opponents that he has had picked for him up to this point, I wouldn't put on the same caliber as the ones that Tyron had to face to get to his shot at the belt. I'm not happy to call Tyron as my choice for this fight, but I feel that compared to just the ability on a raw level against Usman, I think everything Tyron does is not only better, but better enough to a degree that I don't see a chance for Usman to win this fight outside of the always unpredictable lucky puncher's chance. Because anyone in the UFC in any weight division, always in any match, no matter how lopsided, has that 1 in a million puncher's chance to catch that lucky clip right on the chin, right behind the ear, what have you. There's always that 1 in a million, did that happen? Kind of moment that could be in anybody's favor. That being said, outside of that lucky shot, I don't see a single situation where Usman can take Tyron here. With that being said, go ahead.
I've got one other thing that I want to add to this.
Go right ahead.
It's something we talked about a little bit earlier, but albeit briefly, for the Colby Covington thing. I really, really want to see Tyron win just so I can watch him beat the brakes off of Colby Covington, because that dumb motherfucker right there needs his ass whooped in some sort of special way. That's all I'm saying. Like, that hurts me to say that because that means Tyron wins 2 fights more in a row. But you know what? If the Chosen One says he wants to take him out next, by all means, feel free to do so. I will gladly sign the fucking docket for that one. I will pull the switch to be the executioner on that fight. Let's do it.
Yeah. I will absolutely concede that. As much as I am not a Woodley fan, and I have been quite vocal about that as long as he's been in the UFC, I will concede that if nothing else, I would like to see Woodley beat Usman just for the sole reason of setting up the fight of Woodley versus Colby to shut Colby the fuck up. It's almost laughable at this point, especially if you saw the behind the scenes footage. I'm wondering if they're going to end up putting it in tomorrow's embedded vlog, because it was such a big fucking deal. The UFC security actually ran Colby Covington and his little fucking megaphone out of the event and has told them that he is not welcome to come back and cannot even purchase tickets to an event being put on by the company that he works for. That I find is abso-fucking-lutely hilarious. But I will concede that if nothing else, I would like to see Tyron Woodley win for the sole purpose of setting that match up whenever the fuck it needs to be as his next fight and putting this fucking just fantastic shit show finally to rest. That being said, it appears that our third compatriot here, RJ, is experiencing some technical difficulties here. We are going to try and get him back in here, but he is having some problems at the moment. I don't know if he is going to make it back in. If he does, we will gladly give him his moment here to give his take on this fight. But in the meanwhile, there is a little video that I would like to play for you fine folks here to kind of set up what is going to be our breakdown and predictions for the main event of the evening. One of our regular compatriots that is generally on the panel here was supposed to be on this evening, and it appears has had some bad luck and wasn't able to make it himself. One, Nick Devine, is he's growing rapidly to become a very rabid MMA fan, like some of us are, and it's starting to become a little notable. And I just want to give him his little moment here, even though he's not here to give his 2 cents on a potential statement of the evening.
Alright, what's up? This video is about MMA. It's not about anything that my channel's normally about. If you want to talk more or hear more about MMA, check out I'm No Joe on YouTube. It's a channel based around MMA, UFC, Bellator. I''M No Joe. I'm No Joe on YouTube. So I've been kicking around a theory ever since the last time Jon Jones got popped for the Turinabol right before this last fight. And the theory kind of puts 2 things that happen and kind of twists them together. So a little bit ago, Jon Jones got popped for Turinabol after the last Daniel Cormier fight. Then he gets off of a suspension that was supposed to be longer by saying he would help USADA or be an informant or whatever may have you. Then he gets Turinabol, is found in his system again, and is still allowed to fight. So what if the 2 instances of Jon Jones had to be an informant or help USADA, and Jon Jones getting hit again for Turinabol but being allowed to fight were one and the same? What if, because the one happened, the other one happened? Okay, so that's my theory. It's something that I've been thinking about for a while, and I just wanted to share. This theory may be so fucking stupid. That's okay. It's just a fun thing to think about. I'm a fan of MMA, fan of Jon Jones. Just something I'm kicking around. So hear me out for a second. So why would USADA want that? Why would USADA want Jon Jones to get hit for Turinabol? What if they came to Jon Jones and said, this is what you could do for us? We need to start a conversation about if a fighter comes up dirty for performance-enhancing drugs, they'd still be able to fight. We got Brock Lesnar coming up. You won't stop popping. We got a Silva fight coming up. Now, the Silva fight happened. But what if we just needed to start the narrative of fighters did have drugs come up in their system, but it's not an enough amount to be a performance enhancer? We need to start that narrative, John, and we need to start it with you. With me, but everybody's going to think I'm doing drugs again, and everybody's going to think I'm a cheater. Well, do you want to come off suspension and start making money? So that's one thing. What happened with Jon Jones is, after he gets hit with the Turinabol by USADA, then 2 other things start, 2 other commissions start drug testing him with the same test that USADA is doing. And now it's known that they're going to keep testing him. So if USADA is doing the same exact tests as these 2, why would the UFC need USADA anymore? Something that they're paying for, that people know that maybe they want to get rid of because they sold the company. And ever since USADA came around, fights haven't been as exciting. You know, sales have went down, is what's said. I don't know that for a fact, but this is just stuff I hear from either Joe Rogan, Brendan Schaub, whatever. Any kind of MMA talking that I'm listening to. So what if this is all one and the same as, John, this is how you could help us? What if USADA was like, do some Turinabol. We need to test it because we only know one other person that has done Turinabol. There's only studies on one other person that was in that documentary on Netflix. We need to study this shit. So, John, did you do Turinabol? Well, you won't get in trouble. I did do Turinabol. All right, good. We're going to take a couple blood samples, couple urines. We need to figure out this thing. I'm glad you're being honest. But is the whole public going to know? They are. But if you want to fight again, this is what you're going to have to do for us. What if he had the rat on himself? That's even something he said in an interview. Who says I got a rat on anybody else? What if I'm just telling on myself? It's just a theory. Just a theory I had. I thought it was a fun little theory. I've been thinking about it like every time I hear about USADA and John Jones, that maybe them two are one and the same. John Jones had to do something for USADA, and then John Jones is allowed to fight after Ball comes up in the system again, which has never happened before with USADA. If you have drugs, you just can't fight. That's usually the narrative. All of a sudden, you're allowed to fight now. So if somebody else comes up with a little bit, if somebody else pops for Ball, you know people are going to ask, well, was it picograms? Is he allowed to fight? Because John Jones was allowed to fight. And then what if another drug? What if somebody comes up for TRT? All right, how much TRT? Is that enough to be performance enhancing? Shit like that. It's open now. It's open to that conversation now. Anytime anybody pops, that conversation is open. Not only that, like John Jones has been given a green light to have Ball in his system. They didn't even say like how many picograms can you have that you can't go in. They just said it's a little amount of picograms. All right, so how much is performance enhancing? What, like he's got this pulsing effect that somebody said may last all life. Just a theory. Check out I'm No Joe for MMA and stuff. Have a good one.
So that was Nick Devine, one of our compatriots that's a frequenter of the show here. He's as you can tell, he's starting to noticeably really get more into MMA, and he's definitely taken the Eddie Bravo school of tinfoil hat conspiracy theory to heart here. Real quick aside, I just got a message from RJ here. His home Wi-Fi is actually taking a shit on him here. He's having some trouble getting things back up and running, but he did ask me to let the fine folks know that he did say Tyron Woodley's a bitch. So, carry on words from RJ. But to address Nick's theory here, I love that fucking kid, by the way. Nick's an awesome cat. If you guys are vape interested at all, go follow n.divine83 on Instagram or on YouTube or on both. You won't regret it. The guy is a fucking an artist in the truest sense of the word. But to address this video here, I can see where that point of view could be derived based on what he's using as his examples here. There was and still is a lot of controversy surrounding the amount of Turinabol that was found in John Jones's system, the aspect of pulsing itself, the actual picogram limit that they're talking about potentially imposing as a performance enhancing bar that people can still test positive and fight with, as well as John Jones himself potentially being a known doper, and that his assistance to USADA, and since he had mentioned several times that he didn't rat on anybody and that wasn't part of the deal, he just had to help them, could have been to tell on himself and to admit that he was using and what he was using and divulge everything. So that I can see the conversation being started with this is definitely undeniable. Nick makes a very good point there. I will absolutely concede that, because at any point in the future of the UFC, maybe not the whole of MMA, but definitely in UFC, anytime going forward an athlete pisses hot for performance enhancing supplements, it is going to come back to this conversation of, well, how much is enough that you can still fight with? How much determines what a performance enhancing level is, and who decides what those levels of acceptability should be? I think the part where Nick veers a little into the edgy bra territory is when he starts to refer to USADA and both of the other commissions that are going to be testing John Jones going forward. Yes, that is the fact. John Jones is not only going to be tested by USADA, but two other independent commissions as well, regardless of where he is fighting, so that they can undeniably verify that he is not taking performance enhancing supplements, that the levels that may be found in him due to this pulsing issue are not going to go up. They will always go down if they keep presenting themselves I'm not here to dispute the pulsing method or the commission's testing. That's different topic for a different episode here. What I will say is the fact that you will have 3 different commissions doing independent tests on one athlete for the foreseeable rest of his career does, if nothing else, validate the fact that John will be certifiably clean of anything other than the potential effects of this pulsing from the Tyrannoball in a multi-test, peer-reviewed situation. So on that aspect of it, I do see this as being an opportunity for Jon Jones to unequivocally clear his name going forward. That being said, because of that incident itself, there will always be that suspectable asterisk next to his name because of the incidents that he's had. But that being said, that doesn't mean it's the end of his career, because he is far from the only athlete to have ever tested positive for performance-enhancing supplements. It happens more often than it doesn't, and it isn't a career ender. But fucking Nick Devine. That just...
You know, I'm going to second this. The one thing in there that I really think is going to make a huge difference in his fucking theory there, what is the fucking limit that you're going to allow? Because the second, I think this is where USADA and all of them fucked up, is when they released the amount. When they released the amount that they found in that last sample that they said was a pulsing effect, that's where they fucked up. Because the second anytime somebody pisses hot now, that's going to come up of, well, what's my fucking levels at? How do we know that that's performance enhancing at that level? What is the set bar? They need to now go in and set a standard for what that bar is, because let's say it's a tainted fucking supplement or something like that. They didn't know. Were they really getting the performance enhancing benefits because it's a tainted supplement? Don't get me wrong. Some fighters are dumb and they're taking shit from fucking GNC that could be mixed with other shit. They don't know. They're not taking it from reputable sources. Now, don't get me wrong. There's other fucking fighters that are out there trying just to gain an edge. Those ones, yes, are the fuck up. But those guys that are just being stupid, this falls under another thing here. Ignorance is no excuse for the law, period. Or for the rules, for that matter. Being fucking stupid, that's your own fault. Yes, you should get some sort of suspension for that. But that brings into that, well, what's the fucking level? If we're talking, is it picograms or the level? And if so, how many picograms? Because we can make picograms into grams if we give them enough. So it's just, he makes a fantastic point there where they do need to set some sort of precedent now to say, this is the level that is acceptable. We don't want it at all, but this is the acceptable level where we'll still let you continue to fight. But moving forward, if you're anywhere on that spectrum, they should be fucking testing you like a hawk. Fucking 3 different fucking organizations testing you just like Jones has got going on. Because you know what? That little asterisk by Jones' name's never going to go away, ever. Just like any other fighter who's had fucking a top for a fucking something and gone on to do great things. And I'm going to say it right now. We all know, without a shadow of a doubt, that old Nick Barnett is on some shit.
Or was, at least.
Or was. Alleged, and I'm going to say allegedly here, just so this way I keep myself fucking clean on this, because I don't want to. I don't want to.
All theoretical.
Allegedly, I don't want to slander anybody's good name.
They're all just hypotheses we have. This is nothing concrete. This is nothing personal. This is just us throwing shit out into the ether. This is all theoretical and alleged.
I'm throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. That's all I'm saying here. But it does bring up that really, what is an acceptable level that we would consider performance enhancing? And if you do pop hot anywhere on the spectrum, even if you are below that said level, I think they should be watching you like a fucking hawk until you're completely clean. Once you've pissed clean for, let's say, 12 months, a fucking year, more than one fight, because most fighters fight 2-3 times in a year usually. Some are more. Don't get me wrong. There's some fucking Terminators out there that just keep coming. But after you pissed hot for, let's say, 2 fights in a row, because that's usually around about that year turnaround time for most fighters, then yeah, go back to just single USADA. I'm perfectly all right with that, but it is definitely something they need to keep an eye on and set a precedent of what their allowable limit is. So that way this shit doesn't come up again and we don't have to fucking listen to it. Because you know what? I don't want to listen to it. If you popped hot, you popped fucking hot. Either from ignorance or from knowingly trying to gain an edge. And if that's the case, fuck you. And in case, there's plenty of fighters out there that we know have tried to gain an edge. Fucking Vitor Belfort, for example. He was one of those guys. Popped hot on more than one occasion.
A lot, yeah, a lot.
So I'm just saying, it's out there. Set a precedent for what the level is. If you pop hot anywhere on the spectrum, even if you're below the level, please, guys, get 3 independent fucking labs to fucking test their shit. Minimum of a year of cleanness before they're allowed to go back to just single lab USADA. I just think that would be a good fucking solid precedent to go, you know what, okay, they've learned their lesson, they're not going to fuck up again. They've been at it for a year and been clean for a year. And when I say clean, I mean not popping hot on the spectrum at all. So if you did get a tainted supplement with Turnaball, guess what? You might get and be triple tested fucking for God knows how long, because I don't think they ever said what the fucking half-life of that shit is in your system.
No, they said that they weren't able to determine based on the potential pulsing incident that Jones has got going on.
Yeah, and so, you know, that'll give them a good play on how long that shit'll last, because I'm sure he knows exactly when he took that shit. And that way they gives them some sort of idea on how long it takes to get out of the system, which is fantastic. I'm glad that he's allegedly told on himself, because it helps everybody in the system. It doesn't help the asterisk against his name. Don't get me wrong. I still like John Jones, period. I like the type of fighter he is. Sometimes there's some things he says that I don't agree with, but for the most part, I do like the guy. He's a fantastic fighter, and he's a great champion. And DC will never beat him.
So I agree with you to a certain extent. It's been said by Joe Rogan. It's been said by Brendan Schaub. I think even your buddy Funky has said it before. It's been said by several fighters in the recent months with a lot of this John Jones-led controversy, but a lot of controversy around USADA being brought to the forefront more predominantly than it has previously. I think one of the big changes that needs to happen in the UFC, and I think there are several big changes that need to be made now that they're finally getting to the status and the stature that they're at now. But I think one of the big changes that needs to be made is I think it needs to be more than just USADA. I agree that bringing USADA into the UFC voluntarily on their own free will without being forced, making it part of their adopted policy of fighters to be tested this much, to be in the UFC, I think that was a great start. But I think that was, I'm not going to say it was all for show, but at this point, you can't keep going with what you had working previously. Just like with everything else, the fight game is evolving, and just having USADA on the UFC payroll and having them doing this testing, I don't feel is enough. I'm of the opinion that I share with Joe Rogan, in that just USADA testing these athletes is not enough. We need to go one of two ways. We need to either get rid of USADA and just leave it like Bellator does, all to just the local commissions where the fight is taking place to do all of the testing and let the cards fall where the fuck they may, because everyone knows that the local commissions are not always the greatest, and there have been some sketchy fights that were cleared by local commissions. So we either need to just go that way and let the chips fall where the fuck they may, or we need to take the next progressive fucking step that, to me at least, makes logical sense, and you need to bring in at least 2 other organizations so that you have an odd number out, like a 3 set of commissions that are routinely, maybe not as frequently as they do now, because if you've heard the talk about it, USADA is a little fucking obsessive compulsive with their testing. So maybe not quite to that fucking meticulous of a level, but a routine of regular testing from 3 or more different labs to confer with each other in a period that will be able to give you definitive results before a fight gets to that point. Either way, I would be 100% on board with, but I just feel like the way that things are going with just letting USADA handle this and all the fucking controversy that is getting unraveled from things like this Jon Jones incident proves that what we've got now isn't working. It's definitely not a if it ain't broke, don't fix it situation. The fucking wheel is wobbling and the car has a fucking bump to it. It's time to take it to a fucking mechanic and see about getting this shit fixed up or sell it down to the next man and stop pretending we're still driving a fucking Cadillac 300. Or a Chrysler 300, rather. Like, this is not what it appears to be. We need to get things back in order. But that being said, welcome back, RJ. Glad to see you've got everything working here again. I would actually like to take this time here, since you were missing while we had a little bit of a more previous conversation here. I will yield the floor to you, sir, so that you can give your thoughts on the Tyron Woodley versus Kamaru Usman fight, and then potentially address the Nick Devine situation if you would like to.
Thank you. Yeah, fucking internet or Wi-Fi or Zoom. I don't know what just fucked up on me. Don't know what, but that's neither here nor there. The good old Tyquo Woodley. As I told you, fuck you. You're a bitch. Get knocked the fuck out. Go home. If you want to fucking fight, just like I told Meter, just like I put in our little group, you want to fucking fight, let's go back home to the fucking Sentinel and let's fucking fight. You pick a weight class, I'll pick a fucking weight class. I'm gonna fuck you up. You're a bitch. Get knocked the fuck out, go home. Cry like a little pussy. After that, you said something about Nick. Fill me in, because I don't think I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so while you were gone there, we played a little video that our very own Nick Devine had actually published to his Vape YouTube channel to kind of help steer people over to our channel here, as well as to get his opinion out on the issue of Jon Jones and USADA. Basically, to paraphrase his little video here, what Nick believes, or at least considers a plausible conspiracy theory, is that Jon Jones testing hot for Turinabol and USADA allowing him to fight after a second positive test for Turinabol aren't coincidence, but it's one and the same thing. He thinks that as part of Jones' plea agreement with USADA to contribute help or information, that instead of snitching on someone else, what he did was he told on himself. He confirmed that he was using Turinabol, and that they took that as information as a way to start the conversation about how or what acceptable level of potentially performance-enhancing supplements can be found in a person's system and then still be deemed not actually performance-enhancing based on the level, and that Jon Jones has basically been a USADA pawn since he got popped the first time, and that this has all been a planned route by USADA to use Jon Jones as sort of a scapegoat / lightning rod to bring this conversation about, because regardless of how you feel about the situation unfolding itself, like we talked about a little while ago, going forward, any fighter in the UFC that pisses hot is now going to be directly tied. The next thing that gets said after they get confirmed pissing hot is, well, Jones got pissed hot and they still let him fight. So now it almost forces a conversation of what is an acceptable level to be determined that is not performance enhancing of a performance enhancing supplement. And he thinks that Jon Jones is being the USADA pawn in this, basically.
So I can't say pawn. With certain performance enhancing drugs, some of them can stay around in your system but be undetected for 5, 6, 7 piss tests, and then your 7th fight, it'll come up as enough to be detected in a piss test. So depending on the substance that is taken, I guess it'd have to be up for a discussion. Trainable is one of those things that can stay in your system for, I believe it's 2 to 3 years, and it could be picked up in a test or not picked up in a test, depending on the amount and depending on how you've been eating in your diet and how much you have been physically working out over that particular month.
Yep.
Because I actually had a problem with it whenever I first got into fighting. I had a problem with it because I didn't know that I was taking it. I was taking workout supplements, and lo and behold, one of them had Trainable in it. I can't say the word pawn, but since it is Trainable, there's a big, his next fight, he can piss hot again. The next fight that Jones takes, he can piss hot again, and it's just going to get pushed under the rug because of the substance. So I would say it depends on what the substance is, what workout enhancement it is, I'd have to say. Because some of them will only be in your system for a week. Some can be in your system for 3 to 7 days. Some of them can be in your system for 48 hours. To me, it just depends on which substance.
And I absolutely agree with that. I think that actually is part of, not to say the good part, but I'll describe it as one of the silver linings of the shitstorm that unfurled with the Jon Jones situation here, is that like Nick was alluding to here, you almost at this point, regardless of what you think about the situation, you have to now start realistically considering and start looking at potentially implementing some semblance of a system or a level requirement for, the vast majority of the supplements that are considered performance enhancing, whether they really are or aren't. At this point, if you're going to deem them performance enhancing, you're going to have to start having a conversation about what an acceptable level is that determines its performance enhancing status. For that side of it, I absolutely do give it to Nick. I think he did hit it out of the park with that part. Now, the rest of it, I think there is definitely some aluminum foil loose on the hat a little bit there, but I give him credit for making some valid points in his video here. But that being said, that will bring us on to the actual event itself. The main event of the evening, the fight that is the cherry on top of the already picture-perfect Sunday that we are being presented with this Saturday. Jon Jones in his first title defense as the newly reclaimed light heavyweight champion against Anthony Lionheart Smith. Now, this, I'm not going to say it's a mirror of, but there are definitely a lot of similarities between this title fight / defense and the Woodley Usman title defense here. And by that, I mean that Anthony Smith, while he is a very, very interesting fighter to watch, and he has definitely put on some great performances, I feel like overall, he just is not quite to that Jon Jones level. And aside from just this fight, I do think it is worth mentioning, and I will repeat this until I am proven otherwise, but I still firmly believe that Jon Jones is potentially one of the greatest overall pound-for-pound total fighters the UFC has ever seen in any weight class. Aside from his performance-enhancing issues, aside from his out-of-the-octagon shenanigans, I mean purely on his fight performances that we have seen with him in the UFC octagon, I believe that there is an argument to be made for Jon Jones to be the singular best fighter overall that has ever stepped in the UFC. That being said, Anthony Smith is most definitely in an earned position. He is here for his first chance at gold on one of the highest levels in one of the touting best divisions for shining as a fucking world-class athlete that there is in any organization. I think 205, particularly the UFC's 205, is one of the most deadly fucking divisions in any weight class in any organization in MMA right now. Anthony Smith, I definitely believe, is a fighter who will be at the top of that stack for a good long time, provided he plays smart and he plays healthy. That being said, much like Kamaru Usman, I feel like Anthony Smith's road to this title shot has been, I'll go ahead and use the term again, fortuitous. I'm not saying Anthony Smith has not earned his way to the title shot, because like we've said, you don't get into the UFC and get to face the fucking champion for your shot at the belt on coincidence and shit talking. You have to perform to get yourself there. But much like the Kamaru Usman situation, I feel that Anthony Smith has had a very good draw of opponents that he has faced to get himself to this status. And I do realize that that includes very, very efficiently putting the fucking hurt on Rashad Evans and Shogun. But, like has been said by many before me, that was not the Rashad Evans of old that we used to see, and that was not the Shogun that we have seen in the past. I'm not saying both of those guys are past their fucking prime, but neither one of those two are a shadow of their former selves right now. So I automatically have to give a skeptical eye to both of those fights. While they were both great performances on Smith's part, I'm not 100% convinced that those were both fights of themselves warranting pushing you this quickly into a title shot. And it feels to me a little bit like Anthony Smith, style-wise, is a very similar opponent to Jon Jones in that their styles overall are very reflective of each other. But much like the previous fight here, I feel like in this situation, even though he's not a green fighter overall, just like Usman wasn't, I feel like Anthony Smith and the level of competition he's been fighting in the UFC just isn't quite up to what he's standing up against on Saturday night. And while I will give him this, he is not overlooking Jones in any sense of the imagination. He has been very vocal about how seriously he takes this, and he understands the challenge that is before him this weekend. I don't think that Anthony Smith, as much as I do like him, and I genuinely do, and I've talked about him before, I don't think as much as I like him, he's got what it takes to stop Jon Jones. And not just because of the style, but because what Jones is doing now. Jones isn't just fighting anymore. He's not just showing off anymore. He seems to understand more now than ever the position that he is in and the opportunity that he has that very well could be the last one that he's going to get. With the track record that Jones has had, honestly speaking, I don't know that he would get another shot if something happened going forward, like anything that he has had happen in the past. And I think that Jon, based on what he has been saying, not just recently, but since this all came about, I think he understands this more than ever, and it's using that as a motivator. You can see that determined look that we talk about in Jon Jones's face when he gives an interview, when he's standing on stage with Smith. He's got that hunger that you saw him when he first came to the UFC, and you got that holy shit, look at this fucking guy glance at a young Jones. He's got that same hunger in him, and he understands the importance of the opportunities that he's got, and I think that he's going to take advantage of it. I think that Jon Jones is just on a whole nother fucking level than almost anyone else that we will see in mixed martial arts, and I feel like it's not going to be an easy fight by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that Jon Jones is going to beat Anthony Smith, and I think it might happen earlier than it did in the Gustafsson 2 fight. I think Jon Jones takes it either early in the second or late in the first round. I don't think this goes to championship rounds at all.
There's a lot of points I agree with you on here. There's a couple that I'm going to have to sway against. First and foremost, yes, he checks every box. When you go right down the line, Jon Jones checks every box over Anthony Smith. Don't get me wrong, I love Lionheart as a fighter. How he's got to this title shot, I don't quite understand how he's sitting number 3. Because his last 3 fights, yes, albeit all victories, two of them were against aging, road-worn opponents that were fucking on their way out the door anyhow. I mean, what's the chances that we see Rashad come back for any chance at a title shot again? Slim to damn near none. Some fucking ungodly thing would have to happen, like they start allowing steroid use again. That way he could be back on that level. But he had a fantastic career. Anthony put him away just because he was the young lion that came in to oust the owner of the Pride, take over the Pride. Same thing with Mauricio. Look, I love Mr. Shogun Uo just as much as the next guy. He's put on some fantastic shows for us and had some dominant performances. But even in Anthony Smith's last fight, another fantastic top fucking contender that he fought. Won in a very decisive fashion. I think it was a third round submission, if I remember correctly. But yeah, where I'm going with this is he's going from mediocre pool to the fucking 20-foot high dive. This is a completely huge step up in competition. We all know this. And all of this lead up that they're doing, talking about how John Jones is saying, I'm respecting him as an opponent, taking him very seriously, like he should be. He's a fantastic fighter. And Anthony Smith, he even said it in a fucking interview with Matt Serra. You don't hear me saying it, do you? No. That's because you're not taking this seriously. And that is going to bite you in the fucking ass. You're going against one of the arguably greatest fighters to ever fight in the octagon. And I say arguably because there's a couple others that I think may outdo him, but time will tell as that list goes on because those things always change as they do. And, Johnny Bones Jones, he's still in the prime. He's not at the aging stage of his career yet because he's still early 30s. It's not like he's getting into the late 30s, pushing 40, where things do tend to decline just because that's how this fucking sport works. There's a certain point that every man hits in his life or woman where your body automatically starts that slow digression. And there's nothing you can do about it. Fucking the way it works. Unfortunately, it's the way we're built. There are a few exceptions to that policy that we don't get to talk about much because they're no longer in the UFC. We all know who I'm talking about, so I'm not even going to bother naming him because he's another one of those ones that I could say were arguably one of the greatest fighters of all time as well. But right now, I just don't see Anthony Smith taking this seriously, and I think this is going to be his downfall. Here's the issue. The one issue I had with what you said, I do think it's going to go at least to the third round. Namely because if you look at, I know Jones's fights have been pretty spread out over the last couple of years with his poor choices inside and outside of the fighting life. But if you look at his last couple fights, like his last 4 or 5, he's only finished like 2 of them. And one of them, I think, got turned over to a no contest because of the fucking Cannavino or whatever the fuck. Or turn the ball. There you go. God damn it. I'm losing what the fuck I was trying to say. And then the other ones went to decision. Glover Teixeira. The first Gustafsson fight went to decision. Then he had the 2 fights with DC. Finished them both, but one turned to a no contest. So I don't count those in my book. As much as I know DC didn't win those fights, I can't count that just because that is what it is. It's not a fight at that point. And yes, he finished Gustafsson because he's back in that young lion prime where he realizes how badly he screwed the pooch. He did it real good, and he realizes that. And so now there's that hunger that's back that went, man, I fucked myself big time. And he's going to go in there and make fantastic moves. Because you know what? This is one other thing that I wanted to bring up since we were talking about 30% Usman earlier. If you look back at after even this last fight, prior to when they were doing a lot of interviews with him, he said back then when he was in his prime of just running through the division and just mercilessly beating people, he wasn't training hard. He was literally giving 30% because he was busy doing and fucking partying and doing dumb shit because he was on top of the world. He fell off his throne because he did it to himself, not keeping his head in the game. Now that he realizes how badly he's fucked up and how fast this can all go goodbye if he fucks up again, I don't think he's going to ever make that same mistake again. At least I really hope not. Because, everybody's human. We all do stupid shit. It is what it is. But right now, I think John's head is way more in the game, and he checks every box going on the list. I see this going late third, early fourth. And it's going to be, I think, I'm going to call a submission victory here. 'Cause I have a feeling that it's been a while since we've seen him pull a really nice submission, a la like fucking standing guillotine against the cage, putting people out. I'm just saying. But I think it's about time that we're due for another submission victory, although maybe he'll get him with a spinning elbow or something and KO him. But I'm going to go ahead and call submission victory third or fourth round. Late third, early fourth.
That could definitely be a possibility because, like you were saying, that Machida choke against the fucking fence where he just dropped the slump of a man down is something that is always a real possibility. Too close to with him.
Yep, and that's the other reason why I thought about this. If you look at Machida's reach and compare it with Anthony Smith's and height-wise as well, they're about the same size-wise. Anthony Smith's giving up fucking damn near 10 inches of reach. 10 fucking inches. Them long-limbed motherfuckers, they're good at choking people. I know firsthand because there was a guy I trained with when I was in the military. He was an old, long, lanky fucker. He's like 6'6", has some of the longest arms. I'm going, how the fuck did you get me in that choke? Where did your arm even manage to get in there? They're like fucking just slippery as fucking worms ever. They get in everywhere. But, so, I'm just saying, fucking submission. I don't know necessarily. It will be a choke of some variety. He's not big one for arm bars. You don't see that. It'll be a choke of some variety. If he pulls a fucking arm bar out of his ass, I'll shit a chicken. A coop, a farmer to go with it as well.
Well, and to be fair, in Gustafson too, before he set up that ground and pound that got the fight stopped, he had his fucking arm under Alex's neck and he was setting up what looked to be a potentially very fucking problematic and very beautifully slid in choke when he turned around and just threw him over and started beating the shit out of him and they stopped the fucking fight. So that potential for a choke was there against Gustafson, who arguably has given Jones the most difficulty of any fighter since he came in the UFC. And we saw how that turned around when he took him seriously and he put his work in. So I absolutely agree. That potential for a submission is abso-fucking-lutely there.
So I am going to be in unanimous agreement between the two of you gentlemen. The only thing is I'm going to go with Meter and say second round, third round, KO, TKO, because John Jones is a goddamn murderer. I mean, his striking is fucking phenomenal. He is not the best in the world, but he is one of the best in the fucking weight class. I mean, second round and the third round, KO, TKO, calling it. John Jones, kill him. And still, Woodley, you're a bitch.
So I think as with a good portion of the shows, I think we're pretty much in a lot of agreement on the way this card is going to end up. None of us are surprisingly Woodley fans, And none of us really think that Lionheart, though he might be in a position for a title shot here, none of us really see this as a situation that he's going to win. And like we discussed earlier, you know, even the sun shines on a blind dog's ass once in a while. But that 1 in a million puncher's chance that both Usman and Smith have, I don't think is going to be enough for either one of them to take that belt home. I think we're going to have a double situation of and still come Saturday night. So that's what we've got for this evening. We will take it around real quick. RJ, if the folks would like to continue talking some MMA shit with you, please let the fine folks know where they can catch you.
You can find me on Instagram at RJ__vapes. Come talk to me about how Usman fucks Woodley's soul, and then pin this and fucking get this spreading around the internet so I can fight fucking Woodley because he is a bitch. Let's find a catch weight. Let's go 150. I'll fuck your soul, Woodley. I'm out.
Thank you very much for your time, brother. I always appreciate when you've got a moment here to grace us with your presence, and I always do appreciate your opinions. So that brings us back to the other side of the table here. TJ, my brother from another mother, please let these fine folks know where they can catch you if they would like to continue this conversation.
You guys can catch me Wednesday nights, 9:30 Central Time, Galty Vapes on YouTube. Find me on the Instagram, same name. Get hold of me if you want to talk some shit. I'm in total agreement with saying fuck Tyrone, but you know what? We all know he's going to end up winning that fight. And albeit the only reason I want to see him win that fight, like I said earlier, is that Colby Covington nonsense, because that's the only greatest thing that can possibly come out of that. After that, fuck him. And one more time, it was a blast. I love doing this with you guys. Although we don't always see eye to eye on every aspect of what we talk about, or we compare fucking craziness to craziness and come up with some really bad MMA math that doesn't always work. It's always fantastic because you know what? Everybody's input gives me something more to think about, and maybe that next time there's a different aha moment that sticks there. But I'm telling you guys, it's not going to be a KO for fucking Jones. I'm telling you. Submission. Worst part is, you guys know, I don't get to watch this on Saturday because I have other shit going on in my fucking life that's fucked up about it. I don't want a goddamn text from either one of you telling me how that fight went down. Or any of these. I'm watching them on Sunday on replay.
So, firstly, I always appreciate your time and your input, brother. I genuinely enjoy having this conversation with you gentlemen, and I enjoy both of your perspectives as well as the other gentlemen that we bring on here. And I will tell you this, I promise not to post spoilers for the end of the Jones-Smith fight in our conversation group that we have going, but I can't promise that if anything big happens in the other fights that I won't say something in there. But I will leave the Jones spoiler out for you. I promise that much. But
Guess I won't be looking at any fucking... I'm shutting my goddamn phone off. Fuck you guys.
Yeah, I was going to say, you might just try and social media till you wake up Sunday morning, because I can't speak for the rest of these animals that we associate with.
All notifications are going off. If you need to get a hold of me, you need to fucking call. If you call me with spoilers, I'm kicking your ass. I will drive my happy ass down there, and we will go fisticuffs. You better leave your dogs inside too, goddammit.
Fair enough.
I mean, you'll just have to tell me if Woodley wins. If so, I'll be in touch with Dana White. I'll get a fight at Sentinel. I'll take that belt from him gladly. He's pussy.
There we go. So thank you both, gentlemen. I do appreciate your time, and that is the most important thing of all. Time is an invaluable, irreplaceable thing, and I appreciate both of you spending yours with me here to talk some shit and break down, give our thoughts here. I do appreciate both of your inputs because, like TJ said, it always does give me something that I didn't think of and a new way to aha for the next thing that we talk about here. So thank you both for that very much. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have made it this far into the video and we have not bored you to sleep or made you scream and throw things at your fucking monitor, please consider giving us a thumbs up. I feel like we might have earned it. On the other hand, if you have heard our bullshit and decided that you are fucking done with it and we are just idiots with a fucking webcam in front of us, go ahead and give us that thumbs down because we earn that as well. But if you made it this far and you're hearing this fucking sentence, I would appreciate it if you would consider giving us a subscribe, maybe even sharing one of these videos with your friends, telling some folks about it so we can help grow the show. I appreciate each and every one of you that come back every week and all the new folks that pop in and just see what we're doing here. We do this for the love of the sport, and we do this for the love of MMA, and we hope that you guys enjoy it as much as we do. I'm going to call it all for now. I am the Meter. This is the I'm No Joe podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. Remember, you can root for anything. Don't let ignorance stop you. Have a great night, folks.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening. But they fought with expert timing. There were funky Chinamen from funky China.